In a world where girls can transform into living divine weapons, the power of a contractor determines their fate. But while everyone competes for the most famous and coveted weapons, one young man discovers a secret that no one else can see. The weapons considered useless and outdated are actually legendary relics, capable of changing the course of the world. And so he begins gathering ancient divine weapons forgotten by history, awakening powers that defy all known logic. And if you're ready for this series, get ready because the video is about to start. 100 years ago, a huge meteor fell on the continent. The meteorite brought countless insect eggs, scattering them everywhere. These insect eggs hatched into a race of insects and began slaughtering humans. Humans could not resist the attack and were pushed into a vast desert. For many years, humans were always at a disadvantage until the heroes appeared. The heroes created special combat techniques, developing extraordinary powers. Using these powers, they found the insect's core and won that war. 100 years later, an evaluation was taking place at Qingfeng Academy. The first girl, named Luo Ying, took the test, and a level C curved sword with a cutting specialty appeared. She is not very happy to see that she only had an ordinary level C performance. Han Jun had just arrived at the annual tournament, so he does not expect much. The evaluator calls the next one, named Jiang Yan. She touches the crystal and a powerful wave of energy begins to burst out. A spear appears, and the examiner is impressed, saying that it is a spiritual talent with dragon blood and unique fairy characteristics. The other students comment that in that academy, no young person with a level S spiritual talent had appeared in the last few years, but she managed to do it and even has dual characteristics. The combined value of the characteristics of that level S spiritual talent must be truly incredible. Another boy says that if someone else managed to awaken such a powerful talent and team up with her, they would be an invincible duo, but another boy tells him not to talk nonsense because that girl already has a boyfriend. Jiang Yan walks over to Han Zhan saying that it is time to break up because now she has awakened a level S spiritual talent, so the two of them are no longer on the same level. She turns her back, telling him never to look for her again. Everyone starts laughing at him, but the protagonist thinks that just because she awakened a level S spiritual talent, she still thinks he's the same little puppy who used to follow her before the time travel. Before the time travel happened, the protagonist always obeyed everything she said, giving massages, preparing food, and serving her at the table. He even humbled himself and did everything just to gain her approval. Even though he was humiliated and treated like a piece of trash almost every day, in the era of spirits, strength is what matters. In this life, he will no longer be just a little puppy seeking her approval. The others were mocking the situation, saying that he should just give up, because a little bird like him cannot compare to a phoenix like her. And if he keeps chasing after her everywhere, sooner or later someone will teach him a lesson. Han Zhan points out that they are a bunch of insignificant flatterers, asking if they are not afraid that he might awaken a level S or higher spiritual talent. But Jiang Yan mocks him once again, laughing, and explains that she has a level S spiritual talent with phoenix and dragon characteristics, so he is not worthy. The examiner calls him to take the test. As soon as the protagonist touches the crystal, nothing happens, and even he is surprised. Jiang Yan keeps laughing, saying that he really is useless, and that even awakening is difficult for him, yet he still wants to dream of awakening a level S or higher spiritual talent. The boys say that she really is very observant, because that kind of trash never gives up, so maybe he will try again next year. But suddenly, a large amount of energy begins to surge out, leaving everyone surprised. They begin to question whether it could be a level S awakening, but judging by the amount of energy, it might even be SS. The crystal says that the protagonist possesses an SSS-level spirit contract talent, Divine Resurrection. Jiang Yan cannot believe how that is possible because he obtained an SSS-level spirit contract talent that had not appeared in 100 years, something that only the most powerful and fortunate could obtain. The people, still impressed, say that an SSS-level spirit can rewrite history because the last person to awaken an SS level was already a miracle. But now they have an SSS level. It is as if the heavens are giving them a chance to survive. And if the protagonist were not someone destined to change the world, even the gods would not have allowed that to happen. All the girls become completely infatuated with him and start chasing him, shouting that they are level A spirit contractors with a deadly sword, and that whatever he needs, they will be there. Zhou Yi is even bolder and touches the protagonist's face, saying that she has 360 cosplay outfits at home so she can promise to cheer him up every day in any way he wants. He dismisses all of them, apologizing because all of that is too sudden, so he still has not processed it. But the truth is that he thinks everyone, both the women and the men, are a bunch of insignificant trash because all they know how to do is kneel when something like that happens. The protagonist opens the system screen and sees that it says, Suzanu's true spiritual alliance gift. He possesses the abilities Divine Illumination, Key Observation, and Union with the Heavenly Path. Divine Illumination is capable of perceiving all information about heroic spirits, granting divine heroic spirits the power of Suzanu and restoring them to their original state. Key Observation causes each additional heroic spirit of the Sacred Sword to double the attributes of the user and the heroic spirit. Union with the Heavenly Path, under the protection of anomalous spacetime, makes the number of heroic spirits that can be summoned no longer limited. Jiangyan tries to go back on her words and approaches the protagonist, saying that if he had not awakened an SSS-level spiritual talent, all those flatterers would be ignoring him. The protagonist looks at her and sees that she has her Class S heroic spirit, along with its illusion form, the silver spear washed in blue blood, with the characteristics of an eternal, immortal spirit aura, but it has no divinity. Jiang Yan, still thinking he was just a little puppy, says that, if he wants, she will allow him to hold her hand from that moment on. The protagonist is impressed to see that the awakened talent, Divine Vision, really allows him to see all information about spirit contracts. She notices that he has not responded, so she deduces that he is dissatisfied because of that and says that she will do a more detailed review, or they can do a battle simulation. But the protagonist simply refuses and starts to leave. She asks whether once is not enough and whether he is not eating enough. He thinks that next time he will be able to adjust a more suitable spirit contract for her. Jiang Yan keeps insisting and says that it is fine, and if he wants, he can do it once a day. The girls gather around her and begin mocking another girl, saying that she is known as the school beauty, but awakened a level E spirit, and no one pays attention to her anymore. After all, they say she is the school beauty, has looks and talent, but the spirit she awakened is nothing more than a joke. Xia Yuzhen, who is being bullied by the other girls, begins to tear up when she sees them saying that she is nothing but trash no one would choose. Desperate, she starts crying and tries to run away, but ends up bumping into the protagonist. He catches her, telling her to be careful, apologizes because he was not paying much attention, and asks if she is okay. With tears in her eyes, she says yes. The protagonist can see that she is the Summer Rose, a Class E heroic spirit. The illusion form is Qinfu. The protagonist is surprised because this spirit is one of the 10 great divine weapons of antiquity, so why is it only level E? However, his divine resurrection talent can also be useful in moments like that. Yuzhen notices that the protagonist was looking at her and becomes worried, asking if he is hurt because she accidentally bumped into him. Hanjan says that is not it and that apparently she misunderstood. He touches her head, pointing out that he would like to ask if she wants to form a spirit contract with him. That way, she could be his contracted spirit. The other girls cannot believe it, asking what he is doing by making a contract with a level E. It is a waste, even though the protagonist awakened an SSS-level spirit. Jiang Yan was on the verge of madness, questioning whether he really prefers to make a contract with level E trash like her. Because if that is the case, then she will join the competition. But the director of Qingfeng Academy appears. He is Chen Guangming. He warns Han Zhan that he is the future of the school. However, a contract with a level E spirit cannot be allowed. He may even be the future of Great Xia, so he must choose a high-quality spirit gathered from the essence of heaven and earth. Yuzhen becomes even more upset and, with tears streaming down her face, tells the protagonist that the director is right because her talent is not worthy of someone like him. Another person arrives and shouts for them to wait. He is Zhao Shuiying. Jiang Yan's eyes light up when she sees him, since the two of them are relatives. Shuiying, irritated, keeps staring at the protagonist, saying that his cousin had told him that if the protagonist formed a contract with Qingfu, she would be able to awaken an SSS-level spirit with unique talents. He grabs the protagonist by the shirt, questioning whether he is being arrogant because of his talent, because, believe it or not, if he wants, with a single word, no one in that city will form a contract with him. Jiang Yan says that is exactly right, so the protagonist needs to hurry up, apologize to her, and form a contract with her, or her godfather will blacklist him. Han Zhan looks at her, questioning whether she thinks she is worthy. She becomes irritated and Shuiying tries to hit the protagonist, saying that he is going to die, but the director grabs his hand, telling the captain to contain his anger, since the protagonist is already a registered SSS rank awakened one. Shuiying says that it is fine, but only if the protagonist forms a contract with Jiang Yan. Otherwise, there is nothing more to discuss. He thinks that if the protagonist does not listen to what he is saying, then he will ruin everything. Han Zhan says that he will ignore that trash because he cannot affect his decision. He holds Yuzhen in his arms, calling her to form the contract. She feels a little resentful and apologizes, But he interrupts her, saying that she does not need to apologize, because she deserves it and is very worthy. The two begin to form a contract, and he activates his ability, making her feel something inside her body. She is enveloped by a sphere of energy. Hanjan keeps looking at the result and thinks that maybe he really succeeded. The system appears, saying that the condition for the divine resurrection ability was sufficient, and Qingfu reached 100% with an SSS level status. He gained the following abilities: Song of Formation Breaking, Mind Cleansing, and Song of the Dragon Spirit. The protagonist is impressed because that spirit really is very powerful. It can kill, heal, and support all in one ability. It is extremely versatile with no weak points, and that is the true power of an SSS rank-bound spirit. Eugen looks at her own body and cannot believe that she really went from level E to level SSS. She runs over to the protagonist and starts crying while thanking him. Jiang Yan goes to her godfather, saying that she was intimidated by the protagonist and greatly humiliated, so he needs to do something for her. Shueying tells her not to worry because that idiot contracted a level E spirit and his talent is now useless, so he will keep making things difficult for him inside that city. He points out that he has already prepared everything for tomorrow's spiritual master test in Shenlin City, because he is the sky of that place. She thanks him, but Shueying questions what the point is of just thanking him and asks how she plans to repay him. The truth is that they are not family, but lovers. She laughs and says that she was planning to go to the old place and pay him back in a very pleasant way. Shueying says that this is a great idea, and in that way they will have an excellent night. A few hours later, the news was circulating saying that a student from the academy in that city had awakened an SSS rank spiritual master talent, but he was so obsessed with beauty that he lowered himself by contracting an E rank spirit. The famous commentator MacArthur said that the young man had no sense of responsibility and that his attitude was completely ridiculous and self-destructive. Shueying had also done his part. As the acting chief of the Defenders of Blue City, he said that it was a personal decision and that he would not comment on it, but that the defenders were disappointed. Shueying, who was receiving his payment, points out that he had people publish negative news about the protagonist on the forum, and it really worked. Jiang Yan shouted that he really was amazing. He asks if that is not what he is good at, and she says that he is great in every aspect. Shueying points out that public opinion is only the first step, because when the real test begins, he will show the protagonist what true cruelty is. Meanwhile, at the academy, the other people were still ridiculing Eugen, saying that there must be something wrong with the protagonist's brain for making a contract with her, or perhaps he had been fooled by a woman's beauty. Eugen thinks that all of that is her fault and apologizes to the protagonist once again, but he tells her not to keep apologizing because she is a student, so she needs to be a little more confident in herself. He tells her to eat properly so she will not fall behind in the spiritual contract master test. She becomes happy and thanks him. The protagonist tells her to ignore those clowns and let them dance, because all she has to do is show how strong she is later. Suddenly, Wang Lumo appears with the Jiang Yan, asking whether Han Zhan really is who he says he is, because the people outside are saying that he is an SS-level genius, but perhaps he is not that good. The protagonist asks who he is, and the man starts showing off, saying that he is the new spiritual master of the city, named Wang Lumo. The protagonist starts laughing, saying that he is Wang the cuckold. Wang Lumo becomes irritated and asks what he is laughing at, but the protagonist tells him to forget it since he would not understand the joke. Jiang Yan tells Wang Lumo not to get so intimate with the protagonist because he is just a failed spiritual contract master who fell by his own will and is about to be exiled from the city. She calls him to leave because the test will begin shortly, so they need to go. Wang Lumo says that Han Zhan will see what he is capable of later. A short while later, a man was announcing that the spiritual master test was about to begin. Each level of that test has different levels of difficulty, and they will be considered qualified as long as they can pass one level. He asks the first pair of examinees to step forward and calls Jiang Yan and Wang Lumo. The two go to the arena, a portal opens, and difficulty level 1 of the test begins with the Black Oyster. Wang Lumo says that it is time to begin, and Jiang Yan transforms into the spear. The monster charges at them, but he manages to dodge and launches an attack. However, his attack was not that effective. He tries to attack once again and manages to create a large hole, piercing through the monster. The people are impressed, asking whether he is an S-rank spiritual master, because he is very strong. One of the people watching points out that the boy did not manage to pierce it with a single strike, but even so, he did very well. The person in charge of the first region, named Wei Qing, is a little disappointed, telling his teacher that those students are still having difficulty eliminating some black oysters, which are pretty easy even for the worker group. The teacher hits him on the head, saying that he had already told him countless times not to talk as if he were the boss of that place. The person in charge of the second district, Lin Jingxuan, points out that as an S-rank spirit, she should have killed it in a single strike, but she is about 20% weaker. He points out that this is probably happening because she must have an uncontrolled lifestyle, which causes her spiritual source to leak. Shueying realizes that all of this is because of him and tries to change the subject. Meanwhile, inside the arena, the two receive congratulations for facing a difficulty 7 battle and passing the test. In addition, they managed to break the Academy's previous historical record of difficulty 6. The audience says that they really deserve it since they are S rank, but the protagonist, that loser who contracted a level E spirit, will not be able to do anything, so they are looking forward to seeing the face he will make. The evaluator calls the next pair. Han Zhan and Yu Zhen enter the arena, but as soon as the doors open, he is surprised because difficulty level 1 of the test was 10 black oysters, meaning 10 times greater than Wang Lumo's. Yu Zhen is confused, saying that the difficulty level of the test is only 1, so why are there 10 enemies? The spectators realize that they are picking on the protagonist, but this is becoming more and more interesting. Other people say that this is what he deserves, because he chose an E-rank spirit and likes to show off, so he needs to learn a lesson. The evaluator explains that the difficulty of the test changes from person to person, and that in order for them to select only the elite, the test for SSS talents must be 10 times harder than for the others. But the truth is that Shueying had told him to make it as difficult as possible because the protagonist could not be allowed to pass the test. The evaluator thinks that he should apologize to the protagonist, but he should not have offended someone he should not have offended. The monsters prepare to attack, but the protagonist is not afraid and tells them all to come at once. He starts playing, and in a matter of seconds, he destroys all 10 monsters in front of him. No one can believe that he defeated them in seconds and questions whether that really is the power of a level E spirit, because if she is a waste, then what are the others? The teacher also cannot believe what he is seeing. Ching points out that he personally took 30 seconds to eliminate that many black oysters, but the protagonist managed to do it in only 1 second. Jingxuan says that although the protagonist is very strong, the rules of the test cannot keep up with him, even though the difficulty has increased a lot. Shueying explains that this is a temporary audition held by the protectors of Deep Blue City, and they believe that young people should not waste their talents and end up serving as a bad example. He thinks about how this can be possible, how that boy can be so strong, but even so, he will still have to face it. Ching says that it is fine because the difficulty in the test they took back then was the same, and those tiny youngsters have been comfortable for far too long. They should have intensified the training a long time ago. The professor says that he is very interested, so he would like to see what that boy's limits are. Difficulty level 2 of the test begins, and 20 black oysters appear. The protagonist begins to play the sound that breaks the heart, where he finds his soulmate at the end of the world. He attacks again, and the amount of energy released is terrifying, destroying all 20 monsters. He asks if that is all because it is not enough. The students point out that this is madness. Absurd, since what the protagonist is saying is like a direct slap in the face of the officers. Ching says that he no longer cares about anything and will definitely take that boy to District 1. But the person in charge of the 3rd district, Ye Chu, tells Ching that his 1st district is a death squad, and it is not nice to let newcomers go to the front lines only to die in the end. So it would be better for the protagonist to go to the 3rd district and develop there first. Ching asks if Ye Chu is trying to steal that boy. Ye Chu points out that his sister-in-law is not there, so he does not need to be afraid. Ching asks if he has not been beaten enough already, and whether apparently he wants to change that very badly. The person in charge of the 4th district, Shen Jeki, steps in, saying that both districts are frontline battlefields and clear targets of attack, so neither of them is a good option for a newcomer. So why do they not let the protagonist go to the 4th district and start with ruin explorations first? The two immediately tell Jeki to shut up. The professor scolds the 3 of them, ordering them to stop arguing right now, and asks Jingxuan what he thinks of that test. Jingxuan explains that although the black oysters have very thick skin and flesh, Hanzhan's zither sound has a restrictive effect, so they cannot win with numbers alone. Therefore, he proposes that for this test they adopt the highest evaluation standard. The professor agrees with the explanation and accepts the proposal, saying that they will do that. Shueying thinks about the highest standard and that he probably will not be able to get through it. The evaluator receives the request and announces that, by order of the higher-ups, the difficulty of the test has been raised to the highest standard. Difficulty level 3 begins. 10 second-order giant lizards and 10 second-order thunderbirds appear. The spectators think that 20 second-order beasts is a somewhat exaggerated difficulty because the giant lizards focus on defense and the thunderbirds focus on damage. This kind of cooperation is too much even for a level 2 spiritual master. Han Zhan asks if they are joking, because that is too little and will only make him look even more like a genius. Wang Lumo says that Han Zhan is just an arrogant show-off. The 20 beasts prepare to begin the fight and the Thunderbirds attack first. He begins to play his music and orders some warriors to attack. The warriors begin attacking the giant lizards, but the Thunderbirds easily annihilate them. But apparently that is exactly what the protagonist wanted. He sees an opening and jumps, using the song of formation breaking, pointing out that breaking through that for him is like tearing a simple piece of paper. The people still cannot understand how he was able to pass through the Thunderbird's attack and counterattack at the same time. And with the body of a level 1 spiritual master, he was already able to defeat a swarm of second-order insects that was several times larger than him. So how can he really do that? Some remaining monsters begin attacking the protagonist, and he uses the Song of Formation breaking again, defeating all the monsters instantly. The audience asks if he really won again because it is incredible that there are people there even more monstrous than the monsters of today. Wang Lumo questions how much power that boy is still hiding, and the examiner says that difficulty level 3 of the test has been completed. Ching says that despite the odds, the protagonist was able to eliminate the armored giant lizards and the Thunderbirds in only 2 moves. Jingxuan explains that Han Zhan's zither is so unpredictable that it increases his speed by at least 10 times, and that is something unprecedented. The professor starts asking himself whether Yuzhen, beside the protagonist, is really only a level E spirit because that is completely impossible to believe. He calls Ah Fu. The butler presents himself and says that he is at his master's command. The professor says that he has the ability to recognize the level of a contracted spirit and asks him to check Yuzhen's level. The butler points out that he had already checked before, but he was unable to identify her, and perhaps that woman's situation is the same as the young lady's. The professor is surprised, asking his butler if he meant something like Lingzhen, because she was identified as level E by the Awakening Stone, but her talent could not be identified. So they can come to the same conclusion. The reason that girl is so strong is because she formed a contract with the protagonist. The butler says that this is a great explanation and that he cannot rule out that possibility. The professor thinks that this matter is very strange, and if it is true, then Lingzhen and Han Zhan need to meet. He asks his butler at that moment what the name of Lingzhen's level E spirit was. He says that it is the Shenong tripod. The protagonist tells the evaluator that he would like to continue the challenge. The evaluator asks if he is sure, and the protagonist answers yes. The evaluator ends up agreeing, saying that young people nowadays have a lot of energy and tells him to be careful. Difficulty level 4 begins. The monsters begin attacking, but the protagonist continues eliminating all of them easily, asking them to show their limits. He keeps advancing, passing through all the tests with extreme ease. The examiner, frightened by it, tells the protagonist that he has already managed to pass 9 levels in a row and that it is time to stop. But Han Zhan refuses, saying that he would like to complete the challenge all the way to level 10. The evaluator is frightened, asking if that boy has gone crazy because since the test began, no one has ever been able to successfully challenge level 10. The other students point out that even if the protagonist is a true genius, he is just awakened, so it is impossible for him to complete the level 10 challenge. After all, difficulty level 10 is the final challenge and will be against a real third-order monster. So, if he does not want to die, it is better for him to give up immediately. Ching points out that in that test system, he reached challenge level 9 in the past, but the historical record of the last century was reset. Jingxuan says that boy is a true talent, so perhaps he should go to the second district, but Ching was already losing his patience and prepares to resort to aggression, asking if anyone else wants to steal his student with him standing right there. Jingxuan also no longer cared about anything, and in order to get what he wanted, he would not back down even an inch, beginning to release his powers as well. Meanwhile, in the arena, the evaluator explains to the protagonist that if he insists on challenging level 10, he cannot stop him, but he needs to warn him that in his current state, it is impossible to win. Han Zhan agrees with the evaluator, telling him to wait only a few minutes so he can rest and start again. The examiner explains that there are regulations in the test, and the rest time between each match cannot exceed 5 minutes. Han Zhan says that he only needs time for one song. He activates rapid recovery. The other students had already lost their dignity, saying that they were extremely jealous, because now the protagonist is also recovering his psychic energy, and apparently he can attack, support, strengthen, and even heal. That spirit is an all-purpose type, reaching a point where it is even frightening. Meanwhile, Jingxuan and Ching were about to start an unprecedented battle to see who would get the protagonist. Another person arrives and calls their attention. He is the person in charge of District 5, named Liu Jingchun. He asks whether it is really good for them to have a spirit that recharges psychic energy and heals the wounded going to the front lines. Ching asks if he is there to try to steal Han Zhan too. Jingchun asks them to let the protagonist go with him to the 5th district because if that happens, the death rate of spiritual masters on the battlefield will be reduced by at least 30%. The two intensify their auras even more and shout simultaneously that this will not happen. The professor loses his patience and releases the pressure of his aura, frightening everyone and ordering them to stop immediately. He points out that in the 8th Great War, each district performed its duties and achieved great success. The 1st district was decisive in conquering thousands of kilometers. The 2nd district defined the strategies. The 3rd district was expanding its territory. The 4th district was exploring mysteries and pursuing the truth. The 5th district saved countless lives. The 6th district protected danger zones. The 7th traveled across the oceans, and the 8th district hid behind the curtains. These 8 districts are the backbone of Great Xia, holding up the heavens so the people can live in peace. He points out that he has often had the idea of organizing the 9th district, but has never been able to take the initiative to take the first step. Qing asks if his professor really wants to form the 9th district, but Jingxuan's doubt is whether Han Zhan can really handle that pressure. Level 10 begins, and a 3rd order beast, the Red Flame, appears. The protagonist professor says that difficulty level 10 has begun. He needs to survive its attacks for 3 minutes, and they will be considered winners. The monster lets out a deafening roar, pushing the spectators back. As soon as they look at the protagonist, they realize that he is not trying to dodge, and maybe he has gone crazy because that is a 3rd order beast. If he dies, there will be no turning back. Han Zhan asks Yuzhen if she is ready. She says yes, stressing that no matter what he chooses, she will always support him unconditionally. The protagonist begins to advance, shouting that, as a true spirit master, he is not there just to run away and survive. The monster tries to attack, but he manages to dodge the attack and activates a strike from the natural spirit, 1,000 miles of storm with a wind attack. He shows why he is the true protagonist of this work, leaving everyone surprised by the strength of that attack. He apologizes to the monster, but says that he will have to win quickly. He creates a tornado that begins pulling the fire monster inside. The monster tries to fight against it, but cannot resist easily. The other students ask if he really managed to defeat that beast and how that is possible, because it was a 3rd order monster. And that is so surprising that it became a new record that no one will ever break. Wang Lumo starts complaining, asking how that guy can be so strong. Jiang Yan is also not very happy to see that the protagonist stole all the attention. Han Zhan begins to feel very tired because using high-level magic like that has a huge cost on his own body. Suddenly, he begins to feel something strange, and someone approaches, congratulating him for passing the test and reaching the space of the 2nd test. The protagonist asks who he is. Jingxuan introduces himself, saying that he is the person responsible for the 2nd war zone and that he is there to ask a few questions. He asks who the protagonist thinks will win in the end, the Zergs or the humans. Han Zhan explains that the Zergs may win, but the humans will not lose. Jingxuan is surprised and says that this is an interesting answer, asking why the protagonist fights since becoming a spirit master. Han Zhan pounds his chest and says that he does it to prevent the Zergs from harming the people of his homeland, and so they can live and work in peace and tranquility. He does it so he can plant Great Xia's flag across the entire nation and restore its glory. The professor congratulates him, saying that this was an excellent answer, and asks if the protagonist is willing to accept him as his master. Jingxuan says that this is Professor Li Shutong. The protagonist is surprised, asking if he really is Li Shutong of the Li family, because that is the most powerful family in the Great Xia Empire. 100 years ago, the 3 Zerg emperors joined forces to defeat Great Xia, and Great Xia's survival was at stake. At a critical moment, Li Shutong defeated the 3 emperors in a 1-against-3 duel and turned the situation around. The protagonist asks if he really can have a guy like Shutong as his master. The professor says yes, and if the protagonist wants, it can happen immediately. Without thinking twice, Han Zhan accepts the proposal and calls the professor master. Shutong looks at the protagonist and says that he is not bad at all, because he is more the type of disciple the professor likes than any of the others. Shutong points out that this is the first time the two of them are talking, so he did not have anything nice to give his new disciple. He takes out a ring, saying that the ring was made from the bones of the 9th Zerg Emperor, whom he had eliminated himself. The ring contains a personal space that can store things inside it, and now it will belong to the protagonist. Han Zhan is impressed, because that ring contains a terrible aura of death and power. Even the bones are powerful, so how strong was the 9th Order Zerg Emperor before he died? The professor continues explaining that the ring can deter low-level monsters, but when facing more powerful ones, they will show a stronger desire to attack the ring's wearer. So, if the protagonist is worried, he should not use it for now. But Han puts the ring on his finger, saying that it was a gift from his master, so of course he will use it. Shutong laughs and says that he really liked that attitude. Looking at Jingxuan, the professor says that the protagonist is not like those failures who do not even dare to touch the ring even when it is given to them. Shutong changes the subject, saying that it is already time for them to stop chatting nonsense, because the protagonist and the girl accompanying him have just finished the exams and spent a lot of energy. And since he was very happy to see all of that, he would like to take the protagonist out for a great meal. A short while later, inside the restaurant, the professor tells the protagonist that he also invited his seniors so he can meet everyone. Jingxuan introduces himself once again, saying his name and that he is responsible for the second war zone, and that they had already met earlier. The professor continues introducing the others. Han Zhan and Yu Zhen stand up and say that it is a pleasure to meet all of them. Jackie explains to the protagonist that they are all family now, so he does not need to be so formal. Ye Chu says that the other brothers have not arrived yet and that the sixth brother stayed at the border, so he will not be able to attend. Jackie points out that the seventh brother is overseas, so he will not be able to show up for a while either, and the eighth brother. Suddenly he appears, saying that he does not need to be introduced because he is there. The eighth brother hands the protagonist a card saying that it is his number and points out that he can call if he's in danger, but he needs to remember that he will only have one chance and then disappears. Han Zhan, not understanding anything that just happened, says that the eighth brother has quite a unique personality. Jingxuan throws a box to the protagonist, saying that it is a gift from his seniors. Inside it are martial arts techniques, battle clothes, and other useful things. Han Zhan thanks everyone for the gift. Suddenly, a woman barges in, asking Yu Zhen if she is not afraid of being punished for eating a banquet behind her back. Yu Zhen is surprised to see her aunt. That woman keeps shouting, saying that Yu Zhen used to eat at her house, but now that she has made a fortune, she's there enjoying herself behind the back of the person who was with her. Yu Zhen tries to explain that it is not like that, but her aunt advances to hit her, asking how she dares to talk back. The protagonist interrupts and grabs her arm. She tells him to let go, saying that he is the boy who deceived Yu Zhen. The protagonist asks what she wants. The aunt says that she supported that girl for a long time, so of course she wants compensation. Yu Zhen becomes irritated by this and shouts for her aunt to stop immediately. But her aunt asks how she dares to shout, saying that she cannot do that because she has not grown wings yet, and it is not just because she passed the test that she can do whatever she wants. She shouts, telling everyone to listen, that her Nyu is from the 4th district, and if Yu Zhen dares to shout at her again, she will make it impossible for her to live among the spirit masters. Jackie asks what she just said, but the woman keeps getting angry, asking who he is and what he wants. She also points at the professor, saying that he must be the patriarch of the Zhan family and that if he wants to take Yu Zhen away, he will have to pay the bride price, the house, the car, and everything else in her name. She points out that she also has contacts in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th war zones, and if he does not pay for these things, she will make him suffer badly. Shutong becomes irritated and asks his subordinates what they are waiting for, because that woman just called him an old man and tried to extort him, using the districts as a threat. The three call their districts, asking what is going on, but the woman asks the professor if he is trying to manipulate her, because that will not work since she also has people above. A few seconds later, her phone begins to ring. She answers her uncle, asking if he has time to talk to her, but her uncle curses her, questioning whether she wants to destroy his entire family, and tells her to listen carefully to what he is about to say, because from that moment on, the two families no longer have any relationship. Shutong looks at her, saying that she had said she also had someone above, but apparently now she no longer has anyone. She tries to convince her uncle, but he tells her to shut up, because if she wants to die, she can die alone, and not drag other people down with her. In addition, she needs to remember never to look at Han Zhan and Yu Zhen again. As soon as she hears that, she drops the phone and kneels, asking what is going on. The waiter of the establishment walks over to her, asking her not to cause any more trouble inside, but the woman asks what kind of trouble she is causing, because those people are the ones attacking her and she will not let this go. She starts screaming, thrashing on the floor and drawing everyone's attention, telling them to look, because the spirit masters are attacking her, who is just an ordinary person. The professor becomes irritated, saying that she is too noisy and makes her stay very quiet. Yu Zhen, still embarrassed by everything that had happened, apologizes to the professor, saying that it is all her fault. Shutong says that she does not need to apologize because he does not consider it her fault. Since she had no peace, she had to live with that idiot, but from now on, the protagonist, the seniors, and even he himself will be part of her family. He points out that she also should not go to that woman's house anymore, because both she and the protagonist can live in his house. Eugen cries from happiness, thanking the professor very much for everything he is doing for the two of them. He tells her not to be so formal because now they are family, so they can eat and be happy together. He starts preparing the food and says that there are some rules to follow while they eat the famous 9-grill dinner. The middle grill is for hot pot dishes, which must be eaten right after they are served. The other 4 large grills are for cooking, and the 4 small grills in the corners are for stewing, suitable for prolonged cooking. The protagonist understands this metaphor in another way and asks his master what exactly he can be, whether he is cooked, boiled, or stewed. The professor says that, to be very honest, he does not know, because everyone has their own path and no one can predict someone's future, not even him. The protagonist begins to think about it, but the professor notices that something is wrong. He looks at the grill and asks where his pork belly and steaks are. Eugen takes very good care of her man and had already taken everything for him. The protagonist tries to hide it and asks why the senior spirits or the sisters-in-law are not there. Jingxuan asks whether Han Zhan and Eugen have already had a more intimate relationship. Eugen becomes embarrassed and the protagonist simply says no. Jingxuan explains that, after this more intimate relationship, spirit masters can gain a certain degree of replication ability. They are not strong, but they are very useful because these are the 2 types of spiritual forms, materialized and humanized. He points out that the protagonist's sisters-in-law are in their humanized forms, guarding their post for them at this exact moment. The protagonist is shocked, realizing that this allows spirit masters and spirits to fight together or separately. But Eugen, with her face completely flushed, says that this can only happen if they have a more intimate relationship. Jingxuan takes the opportunity and says that he has been curious about this for quite some time. He asks the protagonist whether Eugen really is only an E-rank spirit. Han Zhan says that, to be honest, she really was an E-rank spirit at first, but he has an ability to activate her divinity, and after that, she became SSS rank. The 3 are surprised, asking if this is some kind of joke and whether he really has that strange ability because this is something unprecedented. The protagonist says yes and says that others think he chooses his spirits randomly, but he would never contract ordinary spirits. Because of his talent, if he finds a spirit that has divinity, he will never be at a disadvantage, even if it is low level. Han Zhan thinks that besides the Fu Zither, which in this case is Eugen, there are still 9 other ancient divine weapons, meaning that in total he will have 10 wives. The professor tells the protagonist that no one else can know about this ability besides them. In addition, he also asks Jingxuan to allocate Han Zhan and Eugen with total secrecy and not let anyone discover anything about them. With everything settled, the disciples begin reporting to their master that they have great news, because they have just won 19 consecutive battles against the Zergs and also recovered 6 lost territories, expanding Great Xia's total territory by 20%. In addition, the investigation into the Zerg's decline also made progress that year. The professor proposes a toast, saying that all of that is excellent news, so they can toast to the future of Great Xia. The hours pass, and a long while later, the protagonist asks his master if he is drunk. Shutong laughs but says that instead of worrying about that, they could take a look at their new house first. As soon as they enter, the protagonist is surprised because he did not imagine that his master also had a house in Shenlin City. The professor explains that this is his wife's hometown. The protagonist asks where his master's wife is and why she is not with him. Shutong is a little reluctant to answer, but after taking a deep breath, he explains that she ended up passing away during a fight. They only know that he returned and managed to eliminate the 3 emperors, but no one remembers her name, and that makes him wonder why he was not with her when that happened. Han Zhan apologizes, saying that he should not have mentioned his wife and made him so sad. Shutong tells Han Zhan that he must be kind and do everything for Eugen, because they are not just contracted spirits and are not just tools for fighting, they are also human beings of flesh and blood, which means that, above all, she is his other half. Eugen becomes embarrassed looking at Han Zhan. The protagonist thanks his master for his words of guidance and promises that he will take care of Eugen with his entire life. He asks the professor if he could say his wife's name, because if he can remember her name, then she will never be completely forgotten by the world. Shutong is surprised and says that the protagonist really is different from the others, even to his liking. He says that his wife's name was Ling Mei. In that historic battle, he had managed to eliminate 1 emperor, and she fought to the death against the other 2. If she were still alive, she would be far more qualified than him to receive the honors for saving the empire. This makes the professor a little emotional. He tells the protagonist that it is already getting very late and asks him to find a room he likes and rest a little. Shutong goes outside with his wife's photo, looks at the sky and says that he cannot remember the last time the 2 of them looked at the moon together. But suddenly, the protagonist appears, telling his master that since his wife is no longer there, the two of them would like to accompany him to admire the moon from then on. Shutong looks at the two of them and says that seeing them like that, he can remember exactly himself and his wife when they were younger. He points out that if the protagonist wants to protect the people he truly loves, he needs to become stronger, so he will soon teach him his best martial arts skills. He releases a bit of his aura and with only one punch, manages to destroy a tree right in front of him. He points out that this technique is called Baji Quan, has 8 locks in total corresponding to 8 intimate parts of the human body. Once the 8 locks are unlocked, the limit will be exceeded. After seeing it only once, the protagonist makes a movement very similar to his master's and asks if he is on the right path. Shutong is surprised and even a little frightened, thinking about how that is possible, because Ching took half a year to learn how to unlock a single lock, and that boy managed to do it just by watching once. Hanjan concentrates and says that he is feeling the energy in the right place. The professor charges at the protagonist, saying that now he needs to learn how to fight using the 8 deadly fists technique. Hanjan receives the punch, is thrown several meters back and trembles in pain on the ground. His professor thinks that he needs to teach him that it is not good to be a genius who likes to show off, because he needs to be a little more reserved, otherwise he will have big problems. Shutong smiles and says that it feels very good to teach a talented disciple a lesson. The two continue training, but the protagonist was basically being punished by his master. The next day, at the academy, Eugen asks if the protagonist's face still hurts. He says no, but that the master played around with him a lot last night. Wang Lumo appears once again, saying that he is the strongest spirit master, the one who put on a show in yesterday's test. One of his classmates questions what the point is of showing off so much, since he is going to be thrown away like trash. Eugen asks what those people mean. The protagonist tells her not to worry about it because they are just a bunch of disgusting flies. They go to the director's office and he says that he has bad news because the protagonist has been assigned to the Guardians in Deep Blue City, and, starting that day, he will begin from the bottom by carrying out frontline tasks. He hands over the notice asking the protagonist to report to the organization as soon as possible. Hanjan questions why it has to be the front line. The director apologizes, saying that he understands, but this decision is a little rushed because of his talent. However, it came from above, and he already tried to argue against it, but it did not work. The protagonist tells him not to worry about it because everything is fine and he accepts going there. He thinks that maybe this is exactly what his master had said about his own path. Wang Lumo continues provoking him, saying that he always knew the protagonist was never as good as him, because even after passing the hardest test, he had no goal. Since he offended an official, he is as good as dead. Hanjan starts losing patience with Wang Lumo acting like that, and he asks if he wants to fight, because he spent the whole night with Zhang Yan and his strength doubled, so the protagonist can no longer do whatever he wants. Hanjan attacks, saying that now he will pay for all the humiliation he made him go through in the past. The two collide with their fists, but Wang Lumo's arm is completely destroyed, and he screams in pain. But the protagonist keeps advancing and knocks him out with a single blow. Hanjan calls Eugen, saying that now they can go since that idiot deserved everything that happened. She asks where they are going, and the protagonist says that he is going to report for duty. The director shouts that Wang Lumo fainted due to kidney failure and that he needs to be taken to the infirmary. He goes to the receptionist, but before he can even introduce himself, the receptionist tells him to go back to the end of the line and wait for his number to be called very quietly. The protagonist explains that he is not there to ask for help, but to register. The receptionist looks at him, sees that he is Han Zhan, and says that the lieutenant had ordered him to make sure he saw the two of them dead, but he realizes that he said something stupid and tries to smooth it over, saying that he will warmly welcome Deep Blue City's talented SS rank spiritual master. The receptionist looks through the files, saying that his file was sent to Squad 0527, and he was also appointed captain of that same squad. Within the Guardian organization, each city has a first team which is responsible for supervising the other Guardians. The other Guardians are numbered according to the district and belong to different teams. He explains to the protagonist that the entrance to Office 0527 is on the left, and that he can go straight ahead. As soon as they enter the office, they see that everything is a mess, and even the smell is bad. A woman who is drinking asks who they are and what they are doing there. The protagonist introduces himself, saying that he is the new captain of that team. Ifan, the man who is lying down, says that the protagonist's hair has not even grown yet and he wants to become captain. He insults Hanjan, telling him to get out. Eugen asks how he can speak that way, but the protagonist thinks that guy is very pathetic and wonders how someone like that deserves to be a member of the Guardians. The man gets up and walks over to her, saying that her voice is very soft, and besides that, she also looks very beautiful when she is angry. He tries to touch her, asking if she is interested in becoming his spirit because he promises that But before he can even finish the sentence, the protagonist punches him in the stomach, almost killing the poor guy. He decides to stop provoking him and grabs a bottle to drink. The woman says that he can continue greeting the new captain and that she is going to rest inside. Ifan says that he has no money to drink and asks if she can give him some money, but she simply says that she has nothing and closes the door. Ifan tells the protagonist that, as he can see, that squad does not even have money to buy alcohol and asks if he still wants to stay. Hanjan points out that as long as he is there, the decline of that squad will only be temporary. Ifan tells him not to be so delusional and shows that they are last in points in the ranking of the Guardians of Deep Blue City. In addition, there are only 2 months left until the end of the year and the organization will lower the team's rankings. Everyone who is eliminated will be sent to the lower cities, and based on their squad's points, they will definitely be eliminated. He points out that the lower cities are disordered, dirty, and destroyed, and it is extremely difficult to survive there. So, if he does not want to die in a lower city, he needs to leave immediately. Hanjan looks at the bottle he had thrown on the floor and thinks that with that kind of mindset, that guy is trying to drag everyone into the lower city, and he will not let that happen. Yujin tells the protagonist that those people have no hope anymore and that they need to leave, but he says that running away from a problem only makes people weaker, while overcoming it makes them stronger and stronger. Besides, if he tries to join another team, Shueying definitely will not let him do it in peace. So he needs to stay there and reform the squad, making it become #1 in Deep Blue City. That way he can send that idiot's plans straight down the drain. He throws the door open, and that girl tells him to leave because he is not welcome there. The protagonist asks if they should just stay there doing nothing and calls her Hong Yingwei or Bai Shuang. She gets up, asking who he is and how he can see through her disguise. Bai Shuang is a level A spirit contract whose transformed form is a passionate ring. Her characteristics are lies can become truths, and she can change her appearance, body shape, and height. The protagonist says that he has already introduced himself and even said his name, so now he is only demonstrating a little of his strength. He thinks that woman seems very sloppy, but the fact that that guy asked her for money shows that she is still working hard to maintain the team. As long as she can be put into action, there is still hope for the squad. Shuang asks what he is trying to do, because if he is going to try to threaten her with that, it is just a waste of time. Hanjan extends his hand to her, asking what she thinks about doing missions with him, since Ifan seems determined to die, but she does not want to go to the lower city. Shuang asks why she should believe him. The protagonist says that they will receive half of the mission profits and that, once they work together, she will be able to understand a little more of the weight of what he just said. She ends up agreeing, while thinking that he managed to see through her lies, which means that he is indeed a little different from the others, so there is no harm in trying. Hanjan says that now that the two of them are on the same side, she can take care of collecting missions while he will select which ones they will do. Shuang explains that there are currently 3 missions most suitable for their team and asks him to take a closer look. The first mission is to search for the missing city guardians, giving a total of 50 points. The second mission is to help a spirit master and a contracted spirit resolve emotional disputes. And the third and final mission is to pick up and drop off the employer's children at school, giving a total of 10 points per day. The protagonist says that those missions are low difficulty and give few points. At that rate, it will take too long to reach the top, so he needs to at least choose the one that gives the most points. He chooses a mission to clear out the Zergs detected in the sewers of Deep Blue City, and the city guardians are requested to defeat them. The amount of points for that mission is 300 points upon completion. The materials obtained and other possible gains will be counted separately. The risk factor of that mission is high, and the recommended number is 6 to 8 people. The protagonist says that it is perfect, but she asks if he is going crazy and whether he did not see the recommended number of people, which is 6 to 8, requiring 2 teams working together to complete it. He says that he knows and explains that only that kind of mission can help them turn the rankings around, so he accepts the mission. Shuang says that apparently he does not know what he is doing, because if he fails that mission, he will be penalized with a 10% reduction in the points corresponding to the mission reward. But the protagonist simply tells them to hurry up and says that if anything goes wrong, he will take responsibility for everything. Shuang takes a deep breath and thinks that it is better to forget the argument, because since she agreed to work with that boy, she just needs to collect his body when the mission fails. Meanwhile, some workers notice that the mission was accepted and pass the information to the captain. The captain is surprised and asks who stole that mission, questioning whether it could have been Squad 0018 since they are trying to take advantage of the situation. As it is 300 points, equivalent to 2 months if completed, he refuses, saying that they cannot take it, not to mention the fact that their captain confirmed the operation with them. And to resolve the situation, they need to go to sewer entrance 2 and see who took that mission. Meanwhile, inside the sewer, Shuang tells the protagonist to be careful because the detector showed more than 8 second-order monsters, and apparently that is their nest. Han-Jan and Yujin look at each other and dash forward at high speed. He tells Shuang to wait there because he will be right back. Shuang shouts, saying that those are second-order monsters and that a normal team cannot catch even one. How is he going to fight all of them alone? It is too dangerous. Suddenly, she hears a very loud boom and becomes worried, asking what happened, and tries to go over there to help. But as soon as she gets there, she's surprised to see that all the monsters were defeated on the ground. The protagonist tells her not to worry because everything is already over. Shuang, still shocked, asks if he really managed to do all of that. He says yes and that the mission was a success. In addition, she can make good money by collecting the materials from those bodies. He starts leaving, saying that the guy lying on the ground seems to be the missing guardian. However, he is dead, so she can take and carry the body. Shuang keeps looking at the protagonist and wonders who he really is, because he managed to easily defeat those second-order monsters. 1 hour later, the group that had found out arrives and comes across all the dead monsters. They say that there are a total of 10 second-order monsters, 2 more than what was reported in the mission. One of the members says that he just checked, and all of them were eliminated with only 1 ability. He apologizes to his captain, but the mission has already been completed. The captain questions what kind of monster completed that mission like that. The receptionist from before goes to the lieutenant, saying that the protagonist's squad just completed 2 missions and that their points are now at 350. Hui Ying, furious, slams the table, telling that idiot that he had asked him to take care of the protagonist, and apparently he is handling it excellently. The lieutenant says that the protagonist cannot even think he is out of danger just because he found someone to rely on. He orders the receptionist to talk to all the other squads and make them take every mission in Blue City so that none are left. A little later, back at his house, the professor says that he heard the protagonist is having problems with Lieutenant Shui Ying and asks if he needs help, but the protagonist thanks him and says no. The truth is that he is worried about other problems since the City Guardians, an organization that took on the role of protecting the city, are not doing anything. Shutong explains that when an organization grows and develops, it encounters many problems, and over the years they have only been dealing with monster infestations while the internal roots have slowly been rotting away. And since the roots are rotten, they need treatment, fighting fire with fire to revive them. And that is exactly why he chose the protagonist in the first place. Han-Jan asks his master if he wants him to personally set that fire. The professor points out that fire can burn dead leaves and dispel the darkness, but it can also be extinguished at any moment, and as he had said, the choice of the protagonist's future belongs only to him. Han-Jan says that he understood what he meant and changes the subject, explaining that he currently cannot advance to the next level of the 8 deadly fist technique, and asks what he can do to break through that barrier and advance in level. Shutong says that if he wants to advance in the 8 deadly fists, he needs those 4 words, between life and death. Han-Jan looks at his food while reflecting on what his master just said. A few hours later, he goes to his bed and says that after a great meal, he can finally rest. Yujin goes to his room, asking if she can sleep there that night. The protagonist is confused, saying that the house is very big, so why is she not sleeping in her own room, and asks if something happened. A little embarrassed, she explains that the professor had locked all the doors to the other rooms. Han-Jan says that if she has nowhere else to sleep, he can sleep on the floor, but she says that he needs to sleep in the bed that night. The protagonist becomes a little embarrassed, asking if she really thinks that is a good idea, but ends up agreeing, and the two sleep together that night. The next day, early in the morning, the two get up, and he says that he had a great night, so he rested well last night, and now they can find a new mission. But as soon as he arrives at the office, Shuang says that the new SSS-level Spiritual Contract Master in Blue City is the strongest newcomer in the Spiritual Contract Master evaluation. He managed to eliminate second-order monsters in seconds, challenged a third-order monster in single combat, and became the most talented Spiritual Contract Master in history. Yifan points out that the current #1 genius of the Academy is the protagonist. Shuang bows and apologizes, saying that she did not know he was that strong and thought he had used some connections to enter that place. The protagonist tells her not to be so polite, because they are all friends, so she can relax a little. Shuang keeps looking at him and says that apparently the authorities sent a genius like him to defend the city, and that is a complete waste. Therefore, she cannot understand what those higher-ups are thinking, because if he continues there, he will become useless sooner or later. The protagonist explains that this is only a slight change in his environment. He, on the other hand, will change the environment completely. Yifan explains that the protagonist was very aggressive and offended the lieutenant, so this battle will not be easy at all, since he will do everything he can to have him banished to the lower cities. Shuang says that for some reason, all the missions in Blue City were accepted that day and none were left, so she does not know what they are going to do, because she is working so hard, but now they will have to stop again. The protagonist asks if she really saw it and whether all the missions were accepted. She says yes. The protagonist explains that this is not what he asked, because he already understood that Blue City's missions were accepted, but he wants to know about the other cities. Shuang is still a little confused, questioning what he means. The protagonist takes the tablet and says that he will try changing the address to Konghai City. As soon as he does that, he sees the mission list successfully updated and realizes that none of them have been accepted. Shuang explains that although they can accept missions from other cities, that also means they will have to travel to complete the tasks. However, the roads to other cities are full of high-level monsters, so she is very afraid that something might happen. Even so, they accept the mission and begin the trip. Some monsters appear in front of them, but the car simply ignores them and crashes into them. Eugen asks what that was. The protagonist says it was just a first-order monster, the Deathfly, a creature that moves in groups. The larger the group, the greater its lethality and the more destructive its power. Ifan is surprised and tells them to look ahead. A tornado surrounded by some monsters was right in front of them. Eugen asks if that was also caused by the Deathflies. The protagonist says that with such a massive number, it can be a very destructive force. Ifan, excited, drinks a little more and tells them to drive toward it. Shuang warns the protagonist that there is a caravan being chased by those monsters right there ahead and asks if he wants to rescue them. He says that the answer is obvious, asking her to turn right and go at full power. Ifan says that he will finally be able to fight. She turns the car, making him hit his head, but he gets up saying that this is very exciting. The monsters had already managed to get close to the cars. Meanwhile, in the car ahead, Shang's sighting was in trouble. The old man beside her warns that they cannot increase their speed and will soon be caught as well. And with such little time, it is basically impossible for reinforcements to arrive and ensure the young lady's safety. He grabs the radio and orders everyone to execute the sacrifice plan immediately. She tries to stop him, grabbing the radio and asking them not to do it and to come back immediately. But the people tell her that their job is to protect her. They turn the car around and begin the countdown. They fire some missiles and shoot with everything they have, but it does not solve anything, and they are quickly swept upward. Ting starts crying desperately inside the car, saying that all of this is her fault, but her guardian says that it is an honor to protect her, so she does not need to blame herself. But suddenly, she begins to hear a sound and asks where it is coming from. Some attacks were heading toward those monsters, and the protagonist was eliminating all of them with ease. While he was doing that, the two cars managed to move away from the monsters. She is impressed to see that there really is someone capable of dispersing that storm. The man questions since when they had someone as strong as the protagonist there. The Deathflies try to counterattack, but Ifan steps in front of the protagonist, telling him to be careful and ends up being hit. He falls to the ground and starts laughing, saying that it is very cool and even a little pleasant. The protagonist explains that those needles are poisonous, and if they are not removed in time, he will die within a few seconds. But suddenly, all the needles begin to be rejected by his body on their own. The protagonist is surprised, asking what he did, but when he uses his ability, he realizes that he possesses the talent of immortality, level SS, but has no divinity. The protagonist is even more surprised to see that he really has a level SS talent, but he is also curious to know what the characteristics of immortality are, whether it is just extremely fast recovery or whether the person truly becomes immortal. Ifan starts laughing and says that the protagonist is probably wondering what his immortality talent is, but if he begs hard enough, he might tell him a little. But Han simply says that this is not interesting at all, leaving Ifan speechless. When everything is resolved, they continue along the way and the protagonist ends up sneezing, saying that maybe he is catching a cold or someone is thinking about him. Eugen says that apparently they have arrived at the location of the first mission. The monsters begin to approach, and Eugen is surprised. The protagonist just smiles, saying that now they can start the real fun, because all the points are right in front of them. She transforms and he begins attacking, eliminating all the monsters once again. Ifan says that another group died in seconds. Shuang points out that he is so strong that every time this happens, she is impressed as if it were the first time. They go around completing one mission after another. The people looking at the panels are surprised and question since when that city has had such an incredible group, because aside from the time spent on the road, each mission took 10 seconds at most, and it was a true massacre. Another person asks if it is possible that they are those frontline spirit masters who came back to play around there a little, but another person realizes that Squad 0527 from Deep Blue City had completed all those missions. He throws the tablet on the floor, saying that a squad from Deep Blue City going to their city to earn mission points is basically a slap in their faces. He tells Team 1 to gather immediately and follow him to the mission so he can teach those people a lesson. While on the way, he says that many standard guardians left the city and all seemed dissatisfied with that bully. But now that they are together, they can take care of the remaining demon-tailed snakes ahead. But as soon as he gets a little closer, he realizes that the snakes had also been eliminated. This makes the captain extremely irritated. He orders one of his subordinates to go around and look for that bully immediately. But another subordinate informs his captain that after completing those missions, they seem to have left the city because someone saw a large black pickup truck leaving the area. Suddenly, the captain begins to feel very unwell, and his subordinates become worried, asking what is wrong with him. At the headquarters of the City Guardians organization, the third in command, named Su Mingxuan, says that something very strange is happening and begins questioning why the mission completion rate in Konghai City, Shenlin City, and the other surrounding areas suddenly increased so much. Maybe some kind of special event even happened. A subordinate explains to Mingxuan that a bully mission team appeared from Deep Blue City, specializing in stealing missions from other cities, which led to a chain reaction. Mingxuan asks the subordinate to get that team's files and bring them to him immediately, because he wants to know who this bully mission team doing all of this is. A short while later, the subordinate returns, saying that access to the files is complete. As soon as he hands them over, Mingxuan asks him to leave the room. He sees Yifan's secret file, saying that he is currently in Squad 0527 of Deep Blue City. This captain, an SS-level spiritual contract master, served in the First War Zone and was awarded the Purple Star Medal. Afterward, he fell into a deep depression over the death of his spirit and lowered himself within the City Guardians organization. He possesses the talent of immortality. No form of damage can kill him, and he has the theoretical possibility of immortality. The file level is ultra secret. Shuang's file says that she is also in the same squad and is a level A spirit contract. In the past, she belonged to the same battle zone as Yifan, and later went to the City Guardians organization together with him. Her talent is, lies can become truths. She can change her appearance, body shape, height, and even her name. After this talent is activated, it is a real change. She has the ability to make lies become reality, is extremely dangerous, and that file's level is also ultra secret. Mingxuan is surprised to see that both files are ultra secret and questions how that can be possible. He picks up the protagonist's file, saying that the last of those files cannot also be ultra secret. But the protagonist's file says that he is in the same squad as the other two, and the current captain has just graduated from the academy, but his specific information does not exist. Mingxuan questions how there is nothing and thinks that maybe that file has been corrupted. Suddenly, the phone begins to ring. As soon as he answers, Jingxuan introduces himself. Mingxuan thinks that he is the person who commands the second war zone and begins to wonder what such a powerful and important person wants from him. He asks how he can be of help, but Jingxuan only tells him never to look at the files he just received again, because they are far beyond Mingxuan's access rights. Mingxuan apologizes, saying that this will not happen again. As soon as he hangs up the call, he takes a deep breath and, with sweat running down his face, says that this was far too shocking and questions who the hell Han Zhan is, because he cannot believe that, because of that boy, he received a call from Jingxuan, leader of the Second War Zone. Meanwhile, the protagonist was still playing at hunting. The protagonist was facing another monster, and once again, history repeated itself. With ease, he manages to eliminate that monster, and with that, they have completed a total of 18 missions. He asks Shuang to check how many points the squad currently has. Yifan celebrates with another beer, saying that with all those missions completed, they are probably at the top of the list. Shuang warns the protagonist that, at the moment, they have a total of 1,800 points. But there is a problem. He asks what it is, and she explains that, in the ranking, they are still in last place. Yifan questions how that is possible. Yuzhen asks if there really is someone who can complete missions faster than them. Shuang points out that it is probably the lieutenant causing trouble again. The protagonist takes the tablet to take a look and sees that second to last place has a total of 2,300 points, a little more than them. However, there are dozens of teams that were at the bottom of the list and are now tied with 2,300 points, and that is a little strange. Shuang asks how those teams are tied because they do not have an SSS-level talent, so they cannot complete dungeons. The protagonist says that is not exactly the case because those points were modified and everyone agreed to raise their score. When someone completes a mission, the points are divided among the same people. And since those points are earned through team efforts, they do not violate the rules of the City Guardians organization. Shuang becomes increasingly irritated by this whole situation because they were being constantly targeted. But the protagonist tells her not to worry so much about it because they are very close and still have a chance to overtake them. Since their day was very productive, they can rest, and tomorrow morning they will surpass that dozen in competence. A short while later, they return to his master's house, and the professor asks how the trip went for the two of them. The protagonist explains that they gained a lot, but the result did not turn out the way they wanted. However, they saved a commercial convoy on the road, which was a good thing. Shutong is surprised to see that the girl from the trading shop was saved by him, so he is the unromantic one she had talked about. He starts laughing because now he understands why she had been bothering him all these days, asking how to awaken and become a powerful spirit. Hanjan asks if he knows Ting. The professor explains that that girl's grandfather and he are friends, and the Shang family is behind one of the 5 largest companies, Kongshang Technology. They develop high-quality weapons for spirit masters and ordinary people without spirit contracts, which makes him treat Ting like his granddaughter. The protagonist is still surprised by this story and says that the reason for that is because that girl's identity is not so simple. The professor explains that the merchant deliberately brought her there so she would return against her will, but the protagonist interrupted it. Hanjan is surprised and asks if he ended up doing something bad because that was not his intention. Shutong explains that there is no problem, because the convoy was escorting something meant for him, and he intended to give that gift to the protagonist anyway. Eugen asks what is inside the briefcase. The professor opens the briefcase and says that they are advancement potions. The protagonist says that he has heard conversations saying that those potions can increase strength, speed, reflexes, defense, and even talent. But he does not know if all of that is true or just a lie. Shutong asks why they are still standing there because they each need to take one and drink it immediately. The two thank him and take the potions. As soon as the protagonist drinks it, he manages to advance his spiritual master contract to level 2. He is surprised to see that the potion contains extremely powerful energy. Eugen was also feeling the energy exploding inside her body. The attributes of wind, fire, thunder, and lightning were boiling inside her. The system shows that Eugen is currently an SSS-level spiritual contract. Her strength has risen to level 2, her transformation is the ancient magical weapon, and her divinity is sword and heart, the 4 elements of heaven's will. The protagonist is surprised to see that the 4 elements of heaven's will is something that appeared now, because after her advancement, a new divinity appeared. He also begins to feel something changing in his body again. Heaven's will is actually a celestial phenomenon. The 4 phenomena of the heavens are wind, fire, thunder, and lightning. The song Spring Wildfire has been unlocked, and the 6-dimensional rays have also been unlocked. A few minutes later, the two were completely exhausted and breathing heavily. The protagonist looks at his hand and points out that the advancement potion is extremely powerful. Not only did he gain more music abilities, but Eugen also gained a new divinity. She, still impressed, says that the amount of power she is feeling inside her is incredible. The professor says that he is very happy because they have not disappointed him with their performance so far. The protagonist's phone rings. As soon as he answers, Shuang warns him that he needs to look at Deep Blue City's task list because a new task appeared when it updated. As soon as he looks, he sees that it is a red alert because the Zerg Ranger has appeared near Deep Blue City. They need to send people to complete the mission immediately. The mission points total 1,000. The threat is level 3 or higher. The recommended number is unlimited and there are no access restrictions. All Guardian cities can accept it. Hanjan says that a complete ranger is equal to 3 times the number of 3rd-level spirit masters, and they can accept that mission. He tells everyone to meet him on Chixia Street to discuss it. He grabs Eugen and runs out, saying that a new mission has appeared. The professor says that apparently this day is quite busy. Ah Fu tells his master that Miss Lingzhen has been found, but she does not want to return. The professor asks where she is, and the butler says that she is in Konghai City. A short while later on the agreed street, they meet. Shuang asks her captain if he has already thought about the mission and whether they are going to accept it. The protagonist asks why they would not accept it, since this is a great opportunity to overtake everyone in the rankings. Shuang becomes worried because rangers, even when young, are still very dangerous for them to defeat. The protagonist asks her if she knows what a red alert means. She asks what it is, and the protagonist says that it means that if they do not defeat the ranger before it stops growing, it will destroy the entire city. The teams of the Guardian City then have the true intention not to fight for points, but to fight to protect humanity. Ifan toasts with another beer, saying that the captain really is incredible and that now they can go there, because he wants to drink a little more. Shuang, even though she is worried, ends up agreeing, saying that she will get the car and take him to the mission location. Meanwhile, other Guardians were on top of a building, saying that this ranger has a special talent called Black Tent, which can isolate all perceptions and form its own world, independent of the outside world. Anyone caught by the tent, whether they have life characteristics or not, will rapidly age and decay, leading to death. One of the subordinates asks his captain why the authorities did not deal with the ranger and why they released the mission to the public. This might mean that they do not trust that team's potential. The team captain explains that rangers are very strong and need a large number of scapegoats to draw firepower. The subordinate is surprised by this news. The captain tells him not to do anything until the first batch of cannon fodder arrives. He was watching and sees the protagonist standing on the ground. Hanjan tells his team that this is the black tent released by the ranger, so everyone needs to be careful. Shuang asks if he is really ready since once they enter, there will be no turning back. Ifan says that as far as he is concerned, it is fine since that does not work on him, so he does not care. The protagonist tells them not to worry because everything will be fine. They begin heading toward the center of the problem. As soon as they enter the area, the protagonist says that the Zerg aura inside is very strong, so they need to stay alert. Yujen says that she feels like she is being watched at every moment, as if they were being observed by a pair of invisible eyes. Suddenly, she hears a noise and runs to the protagonist, asking if he heard it too, because it feels like there is a force sucking away their life energy. Shuang explains that the black tent is a unique ability called life deprivation. While they are inside it, it will slowly absorb all their life energy until death. Ifan points out that according to the information, they have half an hour. If they cannot destroy the black tent within that time, they will become nutrients for the ranger's growth. Shuang points ahead, asking if they are talking about that black ball floating there. Ifan says that is right, that is the mission target. The protagonist asks if they only need to break that thing, but suddenly, the ground begins to feel strange and pulls them downward. Ifan tries to help Shuang, and the protagonist tells Ifan to hold on because he is already coming. But suddenly, something appears in front of him. The protagonist says that this is the ranger's second talent, which gives life to any life-giving object. Yujen asks what a life-giving object is. The protagonist says that with this ability, the ranger can give life not only to people, but also to weapons, accessories, and even the ground. Yujen transforms into the divine weapon and says that if that is the case, then they need to stop that monster together. The protagonist prepares himself and agrees with her. He starts attacking that wall, but even though he manages to cause good damage, the wall's recovery is even faster than the damage dealt, making it almost impossible to bring it down. Suddenly, several other walls begin to rise from the ground. The protagonist realizes that this is not good because the ranger is trying to trap them inside. Suddenly, a monster appears behind him and tries to attack. The protagonist manages to dodge, and the monster simply passes through the wall. Hanjan asks if he really missed. Yujen, also confused, asks what that was. The protagonist simply tells her to run as fast as possible. The group from before also decides to enter, saying that apparently there will be no more cannon fodder, so they need to be careful. One of the team members tells his captain not to worry so much, because all of them are level 3 spirit masters and will definitely complete that mission. No matter how bad the situation is, they can still get out safely. But suddenly, they also begin to be sucked into the ground. The young man with purple hair shouts for everyone to be careful and asks if the captain is okay. But as soon as he touches the captain's shoulder, he realizes that he is no longer acting coherently. The captain grabs his subordinate's neck, and the subordinate asks what he is doing. Suddenly, a parasite comes out from the middle of the captain's hair and jumps onto the young man's face. Meanwhile, Shuang and Ifan were together. She thanks him for helping her. Ifan says it is funny how the ranger is trying to defeat them one by one. She asks if he cannot see those invisible threads. He says that he can see them, but they are destined not to beat him, since he has an ability that makes him immortal. Shuang says that sometimes she feels a little jealous of his talent, because there is nothing that can worry him or threaten his life. Ifan asks why she is jealous because that is more like a curse, since he cannot die no matter what. He points out that he does not see any way out and asks why they cannot simply give up. Shuang asks who said they can leave. Ifan asks if she has any idea. She touches the wall, telling it to wake up because it is nothing more than a lifeless piece of dirt. That wall simply begins to collapse and Ifan is impressed, questioning how that is possible. As soon as the wall finishes falling, she sees a shadow in the middle of the dust, asks if he is the captain, and shouts for him to be careful. The protagonist manages to dodge the falling stones at the last second. They finally manage to meet up, and she explains that she had to use her talent to neutralize the labyrinth, but she did not get very far. A stone hand was coming toward them, and the protagonist tells them to be careful. However, the hand was already very close, and they were not going to be able to dodge. The protagonist destroys the hand with a single blow and tells them to stay behind him. A huge stone golem appears, and Shuang says that this is not good at all. The protagonist begins using his wind abilities, and the golem attacks. When the two powers collide, Shuang and Yifan are thrown away by the shockwave, but the protagonist was still fine. He says that those monsters were being summoned by the ranger, and that they must eliminate that monster as quickly as possible. He points out that after the ranger launched the black tent, its body merged with and filled the entire black tent, so only that black ball remained. By breaking that ball, he will be able to eliminate the ranger. Shuang and Yifan stand in front of him, saying that he does not need to worry because the two of them will also help this time. The stone golem charges at the two of them. Yifan goes forward and activates his immortality. He takes the attack head-on and tells the protagonist that his immortality can only withstand 6 times, so he needs to think of a solution as quickly as possible. Hanjan asks them to try to hold that golem back, because he will go straight for the original body. He activates the 6 celestial rays that serve the Emperor. The Avengers appear and launch the ray, hitting the golem with everything they have along with the sphere. With just that attack, the sphere is completely disintegrated. Yifan celebrates, saying that they finally did it, but suddenly a hand pierces through the protagonist's body. Hanjan tells Yifan to run immediately. The ranger throws him away and says that all of them are insects and will not be able to escape. Yifan cannot believe that an adult ranger had appeared there. Shuang appears behind the ranger, asking if they are really surprised, because that adult ranger is her surprise for them. She holds the ranger's arm, saying that she disguised it with her lies and brought it with her all the way there. Then she found the right moment to release it and finish her work. Hanjan asks her why she is doing that. With tears streaming down her face, she starts laughing and asks how he has the nerve to ask why, because the answer is obvious. She wants to eliminate him. Eugen does not understand and asks why this is suddenly happening. The protagonist says that this is the second time and that he cannot be wrong since this is the second time he is seeing it. Yifan is surprised by the phrase second time and asks if his captain knows something. The protagonist says that she is parasitized. The silvery white insect shadow he had seen in her pills is now the legendary Eclipse Zerg. That is a 4th order Zerg with a terrifying, unique ability, brain erosion. If its brain or the brain of any creature is invaded by that monster, it can completely control the creature's body, leaving it parasitized. In addition, that ability has the capacity to reproduce asexually and multiply. In the history of Blue Star, there was someone very powerful at the 7th level whose brain was invaded by that monster. He massacred the city he was supposed to protect, leaving countless lives lost and bodies everywhere. In the end, the organization took a great deal of time and effort to surround him and finally managed to defeat him with countless casualties. That kind of monster should have been completely erased by the first war zone 32 years ago. But why did that monster appear there? Yifan tells his captain to run away first because he can hold out longer because of his immortality, but the protagonist refuses, saying that they will not be able to escape, since the range of the adult ranger's black tent is 10 times larger than that of the young ranger it just absorbed, and with their current speed they will be caught and killed before they can even see the black edge. He asks Yifan to buy as much time as possible while he prepares one of his songs, starts healing himself, and Shuang shouts that this is very bad, ordering the adult ranger to stop the protagonist immediately. The ranger tries to attack, but Yifan steps in front and takes the blow, protecting his captain. Shuang manages to get close to him and uses her lie power, saying that his immortal body is fake and that he does not have an immortal body. But Yifan headbutts her, saying that whether his body is fake or not is none of her business, and the one who decides that is him. As soon as he lands that blow on her, the parasite leaves her and goes to him, trying to enter his arm. But Yifan grabs the parasite with his own hands and still manages to use his immortality 2 more times. He crushes the monster with his own hands, but the adult ranger was already free and says that all of this is very entertaining. Therefore, it would like to see how far they can go. It attacks once again, and Yifan blocks the attack again, asking his captain how much longer he's going to take. Hanjan returns Eugen to her normal form and says that she and Yifan are responsible for dealing with the Eclipse Zerg, while he will take care of that adult ranger. He activates the 8 Deadly Fist technique, First Punch, and points out that he did not expect the adult ranger to force him to use all his strength. He charges forward with everything he has, saying that he needs to put an end to this immediately. But before he can land the blow, the ranger dodges the attack. The monster admits that, for the protagonist's age, he is extremely strong, even surprising it. So they can test that strength and see how many moves he can make. It attacks, but the protagonist breaks the attack with his own fists. The adult ranger questions how that gauntlet is with the protagonist, because more than a decade ago, that same gauntlet killed one of the Zerg kings in battle. It belongs to someone strong, but it was not the protagonist. Hanjan charges at the ranger, saying that maybe he is not as strong as the true owner of that gauntlet, but the ranger is not the Zerg king either. He lands a direct punch, causing a huge shockwave. The ranger begins moving extremely fast, and the protagonist keeps up with its movements. The ranger says that the fact that the one who possesses that gauntlet gave it to the protagonist means that the two of them have a unique relationship. So, if it can eliminate the protagonist, it will leave the true owner completely devastated, and it will be very excited about that. The two collide with another punch, however. The ranger manages to see an opening and lands a blow, piercing through the protagonist's shoulder. Hanjan thinks that he needs to end that fight before that monster manages to absorb all the energy from the young ranger, or he will no longer have any chance of winning. He concentrates, saying that he only has one chance, and life is lived only once. Maybe that is how he needs to feel when he is between life and death, something completely stressful. He activates the 8 rapid fists, second movement, rest, and opens the gate. He says that he can no longer drag this out, so only by fighting can he win. He advances once again, but his speed is extremely higher. He manages to land a blow before the adult ranger can even react. That single strike pulverizes the ranger's body, turning it into several pieces. The protagonist says that apparently that monster lost, but the ranger's face, which was still intact, says no, and that, in truth, the one who lost was the protagonist. The ranger's body begins to regenerate, and Hanjan questions what is happening there. The ranger tells the protagonist that it is over now. Ifan warns his captain that Shuang is gone. The protagonist is surprised, and suddenly several chains begin to appear everywhere. He says that this is not good. The monster creates a huge stone ball, saying that no one will leave there alive, and throws it with great force, saying that everyone will die. Ifan holds back that huge stone and tells his captain to get out of there immediately. His immortality reaches 0, and his body begins to feel enormous tension and pain. Hanjan realizes that he will not be able to hold on much longer. Suddenly someone shouts, 8 rapid fists, extremes of heaven. A huge fist of energy crosses the sky, hitting the ranger and destroying it instantly. The protagonist is surprised and questions what happened there. Shutong appears, saying that apparently he managed to arrive just in time. Hanjan was so exhausted that he could barely say his master's name and falls unconscious. The professor tells the two of them to take the protagonist away first because he still needs to do a little cleaning there. Ifan asks what kind of cleaning he means, and suddenly the parasite begins to run. The next day at the hospital, the protagonist wakes up startled, telling his professor to be careful. Eugen is happy to see that he finally woke up. The protagonist, still confused, asks where he is and how he ended up there. Eugen explains that he is in the hospital and that, after he fainted, the professor began hunting the parasitic worms. However, they could not find the worm queen, so they could not eliminate it entirely. Hanjan was taken to the hospital to recover. He asks if Ifan is okay. She says that, unfortunately, he is in the ICU because when the meteor fell, he did his best to hold it back and his bones and meridians were completely worn down. If not for his immortality talent, he probably would have turned to dust. However, he did not die and is severely injured, but his immortality talent is slowly repairing the damage he suffered. Suddenly, a nurse enters the room in a panic, asking if they are Ifan's colleagues and if they know where he went. The protagonist, still lost with everything that is happening, asks what is going on. The nurse says that he disappeared. Eugen points out that the professor had asked them to track the parasitic worms on their own, and since Shuang had disappeared because of the parasitic worms, Ifan probably went to look for her and the parasitic worms. The protagonist gets up, saying that Shuang is the key link. Level 4 parasitic worms reproduce asexually and multiply, but if they can eliminate the worm queen, all of them will fall simultaneously. Ifan must have discovered something and went to investigate alone. Eugen says that it is unfortunate because the Guardian organization deducted 100 points from their squad. The protagonist asks why. She says that this happened because the professor completed the mission in the end, so it was considered that all teams failed the mission and the points were deducted accordingly. Hanjan says that they fought on the front line and they are using disgusting tricks behind their backs. Eugen points out that they not only took their few points, but also stole the Wanderer's corpse, and all the materials were moved to the Guardian organization building. The protagonist asks if his professor said anything about that. She says that he had said this is a matter between them and the Guardians of Deep Blue City, and no one would interfere. When the protagonist hears that no one would interfere, he smiles and thinks that the professor is clearly supporting them. He holds her hands, saying that it is time to go. She says that his injuries have just healed and asks where he is going. The protagonist says that they are going to take back what belongs to them. Meanwhile, inside the other room, all the teams were happy, saying that the lieutenant was very generous since he divided the materials of the level 4 monster among all the teams. And that was because they did the work. But the protagonist arrives and kicks the door, calling for the lieutenant. One of the guardians asks the protagonist why he is there since he could have given notice, but Han-jan has no patience and tells him to call the lieutenant immediately. The young man prepares to attack, smiling coldly and saying that the protagonist is being a little aggressive. He needs to be careful with his words because this is not a place where he can cause trouble, but the protagonist knocks him down with a single slap. He asks if anyone has ever told him that his smile is so beautiful it makes people want to punch him in the face. The other people think that just one punch already left the other guy on the floor, and that is extremely brutal. But they had recorded everything and will send it for everyone to see Han-jan breaking the rules. The young man from before gets up and tries to attack again, but the protagonist grabs his fist and starts beating him from side to side, saying that apparently he wants to die. While the boy screamed in pain, Shueying appears, saying that is enough. The protagonist says that apparently he really showed up. The lieutenant asks what exactly the protagonist wants. Han-jan says that he wants an apology for his squad immediately. Shueying laughs, saying that he has a very determined mindset. The lieutenant asks Xiaozhang if he has already sent that video to headquarters. Xiaozhang says yes, and that it was delivered to Vice Chief Su Mingxuan and the Supervision Department. Shueying says that now the protagonist is finished, because when headquarters sees that video of him attacking people, he will receive severe punishment. Yuzhen tells the protagonist that she is a little scared, but he tells her not to worry, because with the professor supporting them, no one will dare to do anything to him. Xiaozhang says that headquarters responded, and the lieutenant asked what they said. Xiaozhang explains that headquarters replied that this is an internal matter of the Guardians of Deep Blue City and that the lieutenant should resolve it himself. Shueying is surprised and asks if the supervision department, established by all the major battle zones, agrees. Xiaozhang points out that the supervision department said that the young man who fought has interesting skills and asked whether he would like to join them. The lieutenant becomes irritated and throws his communicator on the floor, questioning what kind of meaningless bureaucracy this is. The protagonist asks if he wants to decide how he will apologize. Shueying asks what kind of apology the protagonist exactly wants to end that mess. Han-jan says that it is very simple because his squad worked very hard to kill the Wanderer outside the city, and he heard that the lieutenant took all the materials for himself. Therefore, he wants the lieutenant to open the Guardian organization's vault and let him choose until he is satisfied, on behalf of all the members of his team. Shueying points out that the Guardian organization's vault contains selected high-value items, so that is absolutely impossible. The protagonist asks how that can be impossible because even if he fills both hands, how much can he take from there? And if the captain cannot meet this small demand, then he will have to question his sincerity. Shueying thinks that this actually makes a little sense, because if only one person enters, how many items can he take until he is satisfied? The lieutenant ends up agreeing, saying that he will enter alone and that when he comes out, no item can be hidden anywhere other than in his hands. Han-jan throws the stupid young man to the floor, saying that he agrees with that, and touches his ring, saying that nothing will be hidden anywhere except in his hands. A short while later, in the treasure vault of the Guardian City organization, Xiaozhang asks the captain if there is any possibility that something could go wrong, because the protagonist is already inside. Shueying points out that there are tens of thousands of items in that vault, and he himself cannot recognize most of them. The protagonist is only a recent academy graduate, so he will definitely get lost inside. However, even if he can recognize all the treasures, how many can he pick up with only 2 hands? Xiaozhang agrees with the lieutenant, saying that all of this really makes sense. Meanwhile, inside, the protagonist was looking at some treasures, impressed by the amount of things there. Fortunately, he brought some notes that his second brother gave him. Otherwise, he would not know anything inside. He looks at the limbs of a 3rd-order skeleton ant, the wings of a 5th-order phantom butterfly, and even the semi-anesthetic linden winter flower. When he looks to the side, he sees the shell of a 6th-order crab. Using that as the main material, he can create a set of defensive equipment. But all the materials there are very good, so he will take them all. He uses the ring to take everything around him. 1 hour later, the lieutenant was irritated, saying that an hour had already passed and asking why the protagonist had still not come out. Suddenly, he comes out from inside, saying that he would like to apologize for making them wait so long. Xiaozhang tells the captain that the boy has already come out. Yuzhen runs over to him and asks what he took. The protagonist laughs, saying that he will talk about it when they get back, but now they need to go home. Xiaozhang keeps looking at that and says it is very strange, because the protagonist was not carrying anything. The lieutenant takes his phone, saying that he will contact the administrator and ask what happened. As soon as he contacts the administrator, he says that the protagonist spent a long time choosing items and asks how many he took. The administrator begins to speak and says 5. The lieutenant asks if it was 5 items because that is a little low, but even so, he will get revenge for those 5 items sooner or later. but the administrator says that is not it. In truth, it was not 5, but 50%. He had taken 50% of the treasures and half of the vault was emptied. The lieutenant goes crazy, and Xiao Zheng wants to think that the protagonist is some kind of madman, asking how he dared to take 50% of everything. Shui Ying says that now he has gone too far because the treasure vault is the property of the Guardian organization, and if he had taken 1 or 2 items, he might have gotten away with it, but he emptied half the vault at once. The Guardian City organization will not let him go. He asks Xiao Zheng to immediately report what just happened there to headquarters, because they will definitely solve the problem. Xiao Zheng points out that he had already done that, and headquarters responded with only 2 words. Shui Ying asks what those words were. Xiao Zheng says that headquarters only said, "Well done." The lieutenant is surprised by that response because he did not expect it. During the night, back at his house, the protagonist places the ring on the table and says that this time they will see if that idiot regrets it after this lesson. Yuzhen appears wearing only a towel and tells the protagonist that it is already very late, so she would like to go to bed with him. Surprised by that, he asks if they are really going to sleep together. She says that she had been very worried and afraid of losing him after he got hurt last time. So that night, no matter what happens, he will not be able to escape. But before she could start doing anything, a girl opens the door asking who is making so much noise in the middle of the night. The two are surprised by that, and Yuzhen gets up embarrassed, asking since when there have been other people there. Hanjan asks who she is. The girl is surprised by that question because the protagonist lives in her grandfather's house and does not know who she is. The protagonist asks if she really is the master's granddaughter. The girl says yes and says that her name is Li Lingzhen. The protagonist activates his ability and sees that she is an E-rank spiritual contract. Her transformation is the Shenong Cauldron, with no characteristics, but she possesses divinity. Hanjan immediately realizes that she is one of the great ancient magical weapons, the Shenong Tripod. Hanjan asks if it is really fine for her to dress like that. Lingzhen explains that this is the most comfortable way for her to stay at home, and dressing that way helps her find inspiration and creativity. Yuzhen asks why she needs so much creativity. Lingzhen says that apparently her grandfather did not tell them, but she is a best-selling online author. She apologizes, asking if they wanted to continue what they were about to do before being interrupted, because if they do not want to continue, then she herself will do it. Yuzhen becomes a little jealous and tells her to wait, saying that the two of them have only just met for the first time, and there is no emotional foundation between them. So how can she be so careless? Lingzhen asks why there should be an emotional foundation to sign a contract. Yuzhen asks if she really only wants to sign a contract. Lingzhen says yes, asking what else she could want. Yuzhen relaxes, saying that if that is the case, then it is fine. The protagonist tells her that her talent is E-rank and is, in fact, divine. So, if she signs a contract with him, he can use divine light to help her awaken a second time. Lingzhen becomes excited, asking if that is true. Then she says that, if that is the case, they can make the contract immediately. She opens her shirt and the protagonist asks what she is trying to do. Lingzhen says that this is to sign the contract. Hanjan holds her hand, asking what signing the contract has to do with taking off her clothes. Lingzhen explains that she is a best-selling author and that, in her books, contracts are made after intimate contact. Hanjan and Yuzhen are surprised by this, but the protagonist says that maybe he can help her with it. He begins signing the contract and activates divine light. Lingzhen begins to feel the change in her body. The ancient divine weapon, Shenong Cauldron, has been found. Lingzhen throws most of her clothes onto the floor, saying that it is very hot and feels like a wave of heat is entering her body. She surrenders to that sensation, saying that it is very comfortable. After the second awakening, the system says that Lingzhen is now an SSS-level spirit. Her transformed form is an ancient divine weapon, the Shenong Cauldron, with the divinity Refine True Essence. Refinement can place natural treasures or Zerg materials inside, and when the Shenong Cauldron is activated, all things are refined to absorb their essence. Finally, the energy is concentrated and extracted to restore its true appearance. The protagonist is surprised by Refine True Essence, because this talent can extract spiritual energy, and perhaps it is possible to obtain pure spiritual energy and achieve breakthroughs. Lingzhen, still shocked by all of that, asks if that is her talent. The protagonist says yes, pointing out that it is very good and that they can try doing it immediately. Yuzhen says that the two of them can continue testing that talent because she is going to get some water. She leaves the room saying that it is a surprise that this little sister is a divine-level spirit. But as soon as she reaches the kitchen, she hears the protagonist asking if Lingzhen is ready because he is going to begin. She asks him to go slower because it hurts a little like that. She asks him to put it in carefully, and the protagonist says that he will start putting it in. Lingzhen screams, telling him to stop because she's already full. Eugen becomes jealous again and throws the door open, shouting and asking what the hell they are doing. As soon as she looks, she sees that Lingzhen had transformed into a cauldron, and the protagonist was putting some materials inside. He asks what is wrong. Eugen becomes embarrassed and says that it is nothing, thinking that they are only refining the materials inside the cauldron. Lingzhen tells Han Zhan that everything has already been refined and asks him to take it out. As soon as he takes the essence, he asks how she managed to extract so much, because apparently she really is incredible. Eugen wants to know what exactly he is holding. The protagonist says that it is spiritual energy, and after they swallow it, they can increase their energy by 1%. Eugen thinks that is incredible. Lingzhen returns to her human form and jumps on top of the protagonist, saying that the alchemy fire is in her body and she still cannot dissipate it. She begins breathing heavily and, while sitting on top of him, shouts for him to hurry up, because the true refining fire is burning and he needs to put it out. Han Zhan grabs Eugen by the arm, asking for help. Lingzhen starts screaming and sweating a lot. Eugen also gets on top of him and Lingzhen almost goes crazy, saying that it is very comfortable because she feels as if she is ascending to the heavens. The protagonist was trying to give it everything he had, and Eugen says that she also cannot take it anymore, while Lingzhen keeps screaming, feeling that heat inside her body. The next morning, the three of them were lying on the floor, and the protagonist says that he is very tired because last night was very difficult. Lingzhen gets up, saying that she did not expect the protagonist to be so capable, because she learned a lot. Eugen also thanks him, saying that all those exchanges made her feel much better, because the power in her body seems to have become more refined. The protagonist gets up, saying that now it is time to get down to business. Lingzhen asks what business that is. The protagonist says that it is to investigate the Eclipse Zerg Queen and look for the missing members of his squad. Lingzhen asks who disappeared. Eugen shows a photo of Shuang, saying that it was her. Lingzhen says that she thinks she has seen that person before because she often goes to a nightclub. Eugen is surprised and asks how she knows that. Lingzhen says it is because she also often goes to that same nightclub, which is called Breeze, the largest in all of Deep Blue City. The protagonist says that this is great news because he did not expect to get a clue so quickly. He says that they need to spray that spray and go to the nightclub immediately. Lingzhen asks what that is because the smell is very bad. Han Zhan explains that it is heather spray. The Zergs are very sensitive to this smell, and when the monsters smell it, they become irritated and go completely crazy. Meanwhile, at the nightclub, everything was happening naturally. The protagonist goes to the bartender and asks if there is a woman named Shuang inside. The bartender starts laughing, asking if he really just asked for Shuang. The protagonist says yes, and everyone is surprised. The bartender shouts, saying that this guy just said, "Buy Shuang," so he will pay for everyone present there. Everyone celebrates, and the protagonist asks what is going on. The bartender says that yesterday a customer came there and took a bunch of drinks on credit, saying that someone would show up, and if he said the words "buy Shuang," he would reserve the place and pay everyone's debt. Eugen, still confused, asks what that means. The protagonist tells her not to worry because this was probably Yifan's doing. The bartender hands a box to the protagonist, saying that it is something another customer left behind. He asked for it to be delivered personally, and he even wanted to know what was inside, but he could not open it. The protagonist is also surprised, asking what exactly it is. As soon as he opens the small chest, he realizes that there is a letter inside. The letter says that in February of the year of the Zerg disaster, Yi Ming, the leader of the first squad of the Guardians of Deep Blue City, returned from a successful expedition to a nearby location and was rewarded by the Guardian organization. The whole team went to the nightclub to celebrate. In March of the 23rd year of the Zerg disaster, Yi Ming was transferred to the front line of the war for special reasons and was never heard from again. In the same month, Vice Captain Shui Ying took over the squad. The reproduction cycle of the Eclipse Zerg mother is 1 month, and each month she splits into a single zygote. If the person reading the letter can eliminate the Zerg mother, all the offspring will die with her. Lingzhen asks if their companion really left that letter behind, and what exactly he is trying to say. Han Zhen points out that the reproduction cycle began in February, which means they now have 7 parasites in total. The two girls are surprised, and the protagonist asks them to wait right there because he needs to go to the bathroom. As soon as he enters the bathroom, there is a man using it. He bumps into the guy and tells him to go outside because he needs to use it. The man gets irritated, complains about the smell, and quickly realizes what it is, charging toward the protagonist. However, his punch has no effect at all, and with just one push, the protagonist throws him away, making the parasite come out. He sees that it is an Eclipse Zerg and crushes the parasite with his hand. The two girls rush into the bathroom asking what was happening there and who that fallen guy was. The protagonist explains that an eclipse Zerg was parasitizing the owner of the nightclub and he has already eliminated it. Eugen says that if there are 7 in total, now that one of them has appeared, where could the others be? Lingzhen points out that, according to what she writes, the bad guys are often around the main one, so the people around Yiming may have been parasitized. The protagonist says that they need to leave and find more clues, but as soon as he comes out of the bathroom, another person tries to attack him, saying that he will end his life right there. But the protagonist dodges and lands another blow, pulling out another parasite and eliminating it on the spot. Lingzhen asks if he was also another parasite. Eugen says that she has seen that guy before, and he is Shui Ying's subordinate. The protagonist finally understands what was happening, because all the people infected by the parasite are related to the nightclub. That boy also went to the nightclub, and all these people have a connection to the same person, the first captain of the Deep Blue City Squad, Shui Ying. And now he knows exactly where Yifan is going. Somewhere else, the lieutenant was having some fun with a girl. Suddenly, Yifan kicks the door open, extremely furious. He says that Shui Ying killed Yi Ming, stole the position of team leader, and used the Zerg incident to oppress and suppress awakened talents and spiritual contracts. And how does he dare to walk freely around with so many crimes on his back? The lieutenant says that this is Yi Ming's incompetent younger brother. He points out that Yifan's woman died, and instead of hiding away and licking his wounds, he came there to try to do something. Yifan remembers the scene that happened with his wife, saying that it was all that idiot's fault, and because of that, he will pay for everything he did. Shui Ying says that he cannot be blamed for that because it was Yifan's lack of determination and bad luck. Besides, the two of them have been arguing for a while, so he should be a little more afraid that his reinforcements will arrive. Suddenly, several people enter asking if the captain is okay. The lieutenant says that this man attacked a member of the Guardian organization and everyone charges at Yifan. He's pretending to be a saint, so he will fight them all to the end. But suddenly, the protagonist destroys the door and enters, throwing everyone away. Yifan is surprised to see him and asks what the captain is doing there. The protagonist says that he was not going to just watch while one of his companions risked himself alone. The other Guardians ask the protagonist if he is sure he wants to stand on that murderer's side. Hanjan warns everyone that this is a personal matter between them and the lieutenant, and anyone who does not want to die just needs to leave immediately. But the Guardians say that there is no chance of that happening, and that the one who will be killed there is the protagonist. They charge forward, but Han Zhan was on a completely different level. He moves with impressive speed, knocking out everyone who approaches. Yifan points out that it has not been long since the two of them met, but his captain's martial arts have improved drastically. Lingzhen warns the protagonist that the lieutenant was escaping, but Han Zhan quickly appears behind him, questioning where he thinks he is going because he needs to accept his fate. With a single blow, the protagonist knocks out the lieutenant and the parasite flies out. But before it can even get away, the protagonist manages to destroy it. Other Guardians enter, saying that the protagonist managed to kill the lieutenant. That is a lot of courage, because the Guardian organization is not the most powerful organization in that city. The real power is the city lord. The protagonist realizes that he has just fallen into a trap. Half an hour earlier, the blue-haired girl went to the mayor, saying that she had some documents for him to sign. The mayor was already parasitized and asked her to bring the files. She is surprised by what she sees and ends up screaming. Han Zhan tells his companions that he has a bad feeling about all of this. He says that the three of them need to leave immediately and look for the master, because he can resolve that crisis. Eugen refuses to leave, saying that no matter what happens, she will stay with him, and that is final. He says that there is no time to argue about it because they need to go. The mayor gives an order to one of the guards, telling him to pass it on. The Deep Blue City Guardian Squad, Unit 0527, has a captain named Han Zhan, who is suspected of murdering the current captain Shui Ying of Unit 1, and he must be wanted throughout the entire city. The mayor smiles because he did not expect the protagonist to fall into the trap so quickly, but at least the fish has taken the bait. Han Zhan goes to the window and says that he should separate from the others, otherwise they will be dragged into all of this. But as soon as he looks up, he sees a man saying that the protagonist killed an important member of the organization and asking why he does not surrender. He orders Han Zhan to kneel, and the protagonist feels an enormous pressure, forcing him to kneel. Somewhere else, a little distance away, the professor was meeting with someone saying that the two of them have been friends for a long time, and even so, his friend is hiding his true identity. The man in black says that the professor does not seem to be in any hurry. Shu Tong asks why he should be. The young man says that it is because the disciple he chose is in prison. The evidence is conclusive, and he will be executed tomorrow in public square. The professor becomes irritated, asking why the man needs to do that to an old friend. The young man in black warns that, even if Shu Tong kills his clone, It will not change anything, since old Shang prepared many clones for each of them. The professor says that he had forgotten about that, but it is not really a problem because surprises are coming. They just need to wait and see. Jingxuan asks his master if he needs help with his younger brother. Shutong points out that he chased after the organization for a long time, but could not find who was behind that entire network. They are trying to control him, dragging the protagonist in and using Shuiying, but he never imagined that Han Zhan was the bait he himself had planted. And the world is like a game. Each game is different, and that is why he needs to thank his new disciple very much for working hard. The protagonist was tied to a chair. The man who had captured him asks if he is still going to refuse to confess his guilt. Han Zhan asks what crime he committed to be guilty. The old man punches the protagonist in the chest, asking if he is going to keep playing hard to get. He points out that the boy should wake up since Shutong will not be able to save him. So he has only two choices at that moment. The first option is that the protagonist must join them, even if he does not need to know who they really are. The only thing he needs to know is that Shutong represents the past, but they represent the future. The second option is for him to continue exactly as he is and be executed tomorrow in the public square. Han Zhan asked the old man if he was the one who let Yi Ming find the Fourth Order Eclipse Zerg and bring it back to Deep Blue City. The old man says that the protagonist can interpret it however he wants. To them, monsters are not enemies. If used correctly, they can be powerful weapons. The protagonist thanks him for the explanation because if that is how they think, then he already knows what his choice will be. The old man becomes curious and asks what the choice is. The protagonist curses the old man, saying that he wants the third option. This makes the old man even more furious. The next day, the news was already everywhere, saying that Captain Han Zhan of Squad 0527 betrayed the organization and eliminated an important member, and that he would be executed that very same day. One of the officers goes to the mayor saying that everything is ready and that they can execute the protagonist soon, as long as he gives the order. The mayor asks if they managed to capture the three who escaped. The officer says not yet because the three are very clever and must be hiding in those houses. The mayor interrupts the officer, saying that he already understands and asks him to leave immediately. As soon as the man leaves, the mayor looks at the protagonist and points out that time is passing, but he remains very calm and perhaps he has some hidden card to play. Meanwhile, the protagonist thinks that his master had suggested they let them do whatever they wanted, because he would take care of everything else. And maybe he said that because he already knew about that entire plan. The other guardians look at the protagonist and realize that he is the spirit master who had awakened with an SS-level talent. They begin questioning why he would become a traitor, because they heard that he eliminated many people because he got angry after they placed him in the city organization. The mayor begins speaking to his citizens, and everyone looks at him. The mayor continues saying that on that beautiful and sad day, they are going to lose a young genius who could have become an exceptional spirit master in the future, but who, because of his selfishness, eliminated innocent people. And that was not all. He also tried to make a deal with the Zergs to destroy the city's peace. The mayor asks what the people think about that and whether he really deserves to die. Because of that lie, he manages to manipulate everyone, and the people shout for his death. The mayor laughs and says that the protagonist dies today, giving the order to execute him. The officer pulls the lever and the guillotine begins to descend. But suddenly, someone uses a device that prevents the blade from touching the protagonist. The officer who had pulled the lever is surprised, asking what is happening and if the machine had broken. This makes the mayor completely furious. He asks who had the courage to interfere with the execution. Ting appears among everyone, telling the city lord that the protagonist is her benefactor, and that she cannot agree with that punishment. The mayor asks if she is Shang's sighting and if her family is interfering in that matter. The protagonist's companions appear in the crowd, saying that they also disagree with that action. Meanwhile, in that same place, the mysterious man warns the professor that the protagonist is already at the guillotine, which means he lost. Shutong calmly places his teacup on the table, saying that the game is not over yet because it is far too early to draw conclusions like that. The mysterious young man begins to disappear, saying that if that is the case, they just need to wait and see the result. As soon as the man leaves, the old man receives a message saying that they will not be able to follow that man and that they failed to discover who is behind everything. Shutong laughs and asks if old Shang is behind this. Shang argues with the professor, saying that that ungrateful old man would never send Ting to the guillotine. Shutong apologizes and says that they need to speak seriously at a time like this, asking if he has any more clues. Shang says that he managed to discover the name of the organization behind all of this, and it is called Dawn. Back at the public square, the other people were surprised to see that a group of people dared to invade the execution ground, and even the Shang family is involved. So this is not an ordinary matter. Ting continues telling everyone to listen saying that all of them were deceived by Kong Chuan. Since the protagonist is not a criminal, he is a protector of the people. She asks everyone to look at the screen. She shows the protagonist fighting and introducing himself, saying that in order to battle, he had to become a spirit master, and that it is not just about survival, it is about continuing humanity and the people of his nation. They must eliminate the Zergs and prevent them from entering the city to hurt others. Seeing those videos playing on the screens, the people begin to think a little more carefully, saying that the protagonist seems to have a strong sense of patriotism. So how could someone who protects everyone with his heart be a traitor? The man who had captured the protagonist appears, ordering everyone to shut up immediately. Ifan feels a strong pressure, and Eugen asks who that guy is. The old man points out that their mission, Dawn, is to execute the protagonist, and no one can interfere with that. He uses his soul, saying that today he will die no matter the cost. But the attack explodes before it can hit the target. The old man is surprised, asking what had happened. Suddenly, he receives another attack and is completely carbonized. That attack was so fast that the people were lost asking what happened, because they could not see who had interfered in that fight. Ting sees Shutong on top of a building leaving. The mayor, completely nervous because of all of that, advances to attack the protagonist, saying that no one can save him. But Han Zhan had been holding back the whole time, and now that his professor had taken action, it was time for him to do the same. The mayor tries to attack, but the protagonist dodges easily, making the mayor surprised. In the blink of an eye, the protagonist appears beside the mayor and lands a direct blow, smashing him into the ground. The parasite comes out of the mayor's forehead and tries to flee, but Han Zhan grabs that parasite, asking where it thinks it is going. He crushes the monster, and everyone stares, asking what that is. The protagonist shouts, saying that what is in his hand is a fourth-generation insect species, the erosion worm. It has been parasitizing humans, confusing their senses, and trying to interfere with their relationships. And even if everyone does not believe him, he is still trying to protect humanity. The people are surprised to see that the erosion worm had appeared again, and now it makes sense why the city lord had been acting so strangely lately. They are relieved because, thanks to the protagonist's intervention, they managed to stop it. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Shutong asked the protagonist how he felt this time, and whether he experienced the line between life and death. Han Zhan explains that he felt that he had a great teacher behind him providing support, but next time, he would rather be the one making the moves. His master thanks him, saying that the protagonist worked very well because now the Zerg Queen is dead, and all the erosion worms have been found, so his work is complete. But even so, it is a pity that he went in with too much excitement, and because of that, no trace of Dawn was left behind. The protagonist asks what this Dawn is. His master explains that it is a mysterious organization that has infiltrated the Guardians, but they have still managed to obtain almost no information about it. The protagonist is surprised and asks if there really is still an organization hidden among them. Ifan tells his captain that they could not protect Bai Shuang, but at the very least, they need to find her body and say goodbye properly. Han Zhan is a little upset by this and asks where. Ifan explains that there was a total of one person who died in that incident. She and the others were frozen together, and a burial at sea is being planned. All the victims were placed in their coffins and thrown into the sea. Bai Shuang, unfortunately, was one of them. The professor and the protagonist's entire squad were looking at the bodies. Han Zhan asks Bai Shuang for forgiveness for not being able to protect her as a friend and captain. Her body becomes a little strange. Her face changes color slightly, and suddenly her eyes open and something comes out of her mouth. Months passed, and while they were eating, the professor asked the protagonist if, after the incident with the worms, all of them managed to advance to level 3. Han Zhan says yes and explains that Lingzhen also reached the 3rd level and joined them. Currently, she is an SSS-level spiritual contract at the 3rd level, with the divine attributes Refine Essence, Control 10,000 Things, and Creation of Life. The protagonist continues explaining and says that Eugen also awakened more musical pieces, so he needs to practice more in the future. Ting, excited, asks if the protagonist could make a contract with her when she awakens. He explains that he only makes contracts with spirits that have divine attributes, because they offer great help in their battle form. She agrees and hopes that she can also awaken a divine attribute when that happens. The protagonist's master explains that after the 3rd level, there is nothing more for him to practice in that city and asks if he has any plans. Han Zhan says that he would like to become stronger and rely only on himself during that insect apocalypse. Shutong says that if that is the case, then he will contact Qing tomorrow and have a plane take him to the battlefront to train. The first war zone is about to enter an annual large-scale battle against insect species. However, if it is for training, the two of them cannot go with him. The cultivation method of spiritual contracts differs from the method of contract masters, so he has a better arrangement for the two of them than sending them to the front line. The protagonist agrees, saying that he will follow the plan his master gives them. A short while later in Daxia, on the frontline battlefield, the war was continuing, humans versus monsters. Several humans were injured while others tried to help them. Suddenly, another person arrives and one of them asks the other why he came back, since 3 people from Zhang's group had just died and he is running back. The other young man tells the first one to be quiet because a regular group has at least 5 people, and 3 of them had just been eliminated. So how could he not come back to wait for reinforcements? One of the young men asks if he can join him because he is on an elite mission. Suddenly, a helicopter passes over them and the protagonist descends, going over to the others and introducing himself, saying his name and that he is a new soldier. The first young man asks if he is alone and where his spiritual contract is. The protagonist says that she did not come and stayed at home. This makes the man irritated, asking if this is some kind of joke, because that is a battlefield and the protagonist showed up alone. Apparently, he wants to die. The red-haired man asks the captain to calm down because that young man is someone they need to take with them, since his clothes clearly show that he's not close to the battlefield and apparently he is a young master from the city. The captain asks if he is some kind of garbage dump because young masters with such delicate skin cause him a lot of trouble. The captain tells Zhang to take that young master to his group first, but Zhang refuses, saying that they had already agreed that the captain would choose first and that he cannot go back on his word. The captain ends up agreeing and tells the protagonist to go with him to meet his other companions. The captain asks the protagonist again what his name is. The protagonist introduces himself once more and says that he is level 3. The captain also introduces himself, saying that his name is Xiao Ya, a 4th level spirit master, and that he is the current captain of the group. According to the regulations, the protagonist will be recruited and join them in the group. The captain introduces the two of them, saying that they are his teammates and that their names are Kai Shifang and Shi Xiaoqian. The girl says that she ended up getting completely wet because of that mission and tries to take off her jacket but ends up getting stuck. She asks the protagonist to help her take off that blouse. As soon as he helps, she smiles, thanks him, and asks the captain if he is their new companion and why he is there alone and did not bring his spirit in human form. Hanjan introduces himself to her and says that he brought some small gifts for their first meeting, so he would really like them to accept them. He takes out some armor, and they are impressed to see that it is level 6 armor, which makes it very precious. The two of them are very happy about it, but the captain says that he does not need it because he is a mecha operator and does not need protective equipment. Xiao Ya thinks that the protagonist truly comes from a noble family in the city because he not only has a storage ring, but also level 6 equipment, which makes him wonder how great his family must be to be so generous. The captain tells the group that he will get the next task in the supplies and asks them to go ahead. Hanjan asks if his captain really is a mecha operator. Xiaoqian explains that the captain's spirit died on the front lines of the battle and they gave him a second chance to continue working with the mecha and keep fighting. Shifang points out that what he despises the most are the big shots who just sit around and do nothing. She realizes that she just said something foolish and apologizes, because she forgot that the protagonist is part of the big shots. The captain tells them to stop talking nonsense and start the mission already. Hanjan asks what the mission is. The captain explains that the mission is a blue-level mission called Departure of the Descendants. The protagonist asks what that is. Xiao Ya points out that all of them must have heard of the Izaki snake tribe. That tribe reproduces very quickly, and its speed of adding troops to the battlefield is 10,000 times faster than theirs. Even with a ratio of 100 to 1, they cannot counterattack the Izaki snakes with exclusive reinforcements. This is also the reason why, during the 1-month mission, the first war zone and the snake elites were locked in a stalemate at the front of the battlefield. But the sudden and powerful return of Qing, the leader of the first war zone, tipped the balance. He led the way and broke the reinforcement and supply line of the snake tribe, raising the ratio to a terrifying 100,000 to 1. Although his attack caught the tribe off guard, 4 8th-level snake kings soon surrounded him. Both sides fought fiercely the entire way and after a long time, left the battlefield and went to fight somewhere else. The mission order came from the second war zone, which identified the location of dozens of nests through the gift from his spirit master. The closest and most mobile group in each area is responsible for carrying out the task of destroying the snake nest. With everything explained, he says that time is passing and they cannot waste any more time, so they need to go. A little farther ahead, while they were walking through the forest, the captain tells everyone to stay alert because they are close to the target location. The protagonist notices something strange and says that apparently they have already arrived. That thing was stretching across almost the entire forest. The captain is impressed, saying that it is snakeskin because they shed their skin when they advance in level. The protagonist says that the snakes are very smart and hid their eggs inside. Suddenly, one of the eggs begins to crack. Shifeng and Zhao Qian ask what that sound is. All the eggs begin to break at the same time, causing a huge sound wave. It was so strong that it threw the captain off the cliff. The protagonist jumps to try to help him without thinking twice, and the two who stayed above become worried. As the two were falling, the captain tells the protagonist to stop being an idiot and complete the mission, and that he does not need to save him, but the protagonist refuses to leave a companion behind. He manages to grab the robot's hand and throws him upward. The captain returns to the top, but the two of them are still worried about the protagonist. Zhao Ya questions how that was possible and how he has so much strength to make a move like that in midair. Zhao Qian tells the captain that the cliff is very high, so the protagonist should not survive a fall like that. This leaves the captain a little shaken. He apologizes, saying that this is all his fault, but suddenly the protagonist grabs the edge of the cliff and starts climbing up, saying that he is not dead yet, so they need to stop talking nonsense and help him climb up already. The two help him and say that this is great because he really is alive. Zhao Ya scolds the protagonist, saying that he took an idiotic action, and asks who told him to sacrifice himself to help others. Besides, the mission is to eliminate the snake nest, so he should focus on completing the mission and not waste time on a teammate. The protagonist just laughs and tells his captain that he understands. The snakes begin to approach because all of them hatched at the same time. The captain takes the front line and tells all of them to be careful, but Shifeng and Zhao Qian become frightened, saying that there are too many baby snakes and that they might die. The snakes begin attacking and the captain goes ahead, telling the rest to get out of there, because he will hold back the snakes' advance. Shifeng says that there are too many snakes everywhere and that they will not be able to escape. The protagonist uses his ring and creates a huge barrier, making the snakes stop. Xiao Ya is surprised by this, not understanding why the snakes are not moving. Suddenly, the snakes begin behaving strangely, and this shocks the group even more because apparently the snakes were bowing to them. Han Zhan asks why his captain is waiting and tells him to burn all the snakes immediately. The captain says that he understands and begins firing an absurd amount of flames, eliminating all the snakes in front of him. Zhao Qian asks what the protagonist had done. He explains that he used a piece of equipment to intimidate them. Shifeng says that it was incredible to see. The captain stops the attack, saying that the target was hit. While the snakes were burning, he looks at the protagonist and asks who the hell he is, because his actions and behavior do not match those spoiled, noble sons. Han Zhan laughs and says that, as they can see, he is not some hidden expert and is only a third-level spirit master. But the captain says that no one believes that. Suddenly, an alarm begins to sound from the armor, and the captain is surprised. The protagonist asks if something is going wrong. Zhao Ya points out that the mission to eradicate the snake nest did not go very well. Including their group, fewer than 10 other groups managed to complete the mission. Shifeng says that fortunately they had Han Zhan's help, otherwise they would have failed too. The captain says that the Azaki clan's reinforcement points are all marked on the operation map, and in order for those newborn snakes to reach the battlefield, there are some key paths they must follow. The captain points out that the protagonist has an incredible ability to make the snakes bow to him and that if they can protect those paths, they can eliminate them. Then he asks what he thinks. The protagonist senses an extremely frightening presence and points out that he does not know if he can eliminate all the snakes, but they need to get out of there immediately. Otherwise, they will be eliminated. The 5th-level Izaki snake, the guardian of the snake nest, had appeared near them. The group is frightened when they see that guardian snake because it is huge. The protagonist begins to retreat and asks what the others are doing standing there, because they need to retreat immediately. The other two begin running, saying that they have no chance of eliminating that monster. But the captain acts like a true leader and stays still, attacking that monster and telling everyone to go ahead, because he will provide cover. The attacks hit the snake, but they basically have no effect at all. The protagonist becomes worried about his captain. The guardian grabs the captain in its mouth and easily crushes the armor, throwing the captain out. Shifeng and Zhao Qian are shocked by that and stop running. The guardian takes advantage of this and tries to attack the two of them. However, a magic shield appears, protecting them both. They are surprised to see that it is the power of the level 6 armor the protagonist had given them, and that, at least for now, they are safe. But this makes them lower their guard. The snake ends up releasing its venom, which easily breaks through that barrier and falls on top of the two of them, pulverizing their bodies almost instantly. This makes the protagonist furious and the snake charges at him. Seeing that he could not flee, he opens the emergency lock and dodges the snake's attack. He uses the dragon flight maneuver and the wind to try to gain a little more space. But a thorn begins to emerge from the snake's forehead and it launches it towards the protagonist. He manages to block the attack, but the impact makes him lose control and sends him crashing into the ground. He realizes that the 5th level guardian is very strong and that he cannot face it head-on. The snake tries to attack him again, but suddenly a very powerful attack hits the center of the snake's head, eliminating it in a single move. A woman approaches, and the protagonist thanks her for saving his life. She is Gongyang Jin. She laughs and says that he is very cute, exactly her type, but she is not his senior from Great Xia. She explains that she is from the City of Extreme Evil, something they call the Land of Exile among spirit contract masters. The protagonist thinks that this Land of Exile is the City of Extreme Evil, which is mostly made up of exiles. They were sent there because they were not accepted by any nation, forming a massive concentration camp, also known as a district. Their evil lies in acting according to their own desires, without caring about other people's lives and getting everything they want by any means necessary. He uses his ability and sees that she is an SSS-level spiritual contract ranked 8th, with the transformed form of the Blade of Destruction and the Valkyrie characteristic. He is impressed. She walks over to him and asks what the name of the song he just played is, because she feels as if every cell in her body was amplified because of it. She also felt a strong urge to punch the Serpent Emperor and kill him with a single blow. She points out that she will take him back with her, making him her exclusive support in battles. This leaves the protagonist a little surprised. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new content. Thank you.